The dark side of the soul. We're all evil, jealous, and angry by nature. Chapter 1. The Bible says not one of us is righteous. Psychology says we're noble self-actualized beings. Psychology and evil one. No one, not one is righteous. Romans 3:9-20, Psalm 53:1-6. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." John 8:7. How good are we as the human race as a whole and as individuals? We're all so delusional as individuals that virtually all of us think we're decent people even when we're evil scumbags. It's always the other guy who's the asshole. We got decent people out there working as cops, doctors, teachers, grocers, etc. What happens when you get into a bind like you need money? People can justify anything when it comes to feeding your family. How many people are in jail not because they're evil criminals but because of a minute of anger? I'm still stuck on abortion because I just saw a Democratic senator, a fat guy to boot, give his little speech on the news protecting women's rights, but they cannot say out loud that we're protecting our right to kill babies. I understand that everyone is capable of evil even though almost all of us think we're good. Beyond that, the collective delusions are monumental. We fool ourselves into thinking we're good. We worship material excess. I got no problem with the tycoon who goes to work every day because he likes developing stuff. My beef is with the people living in houses that are 5 times bigger than they need. It goes on and on. There is no solution to the goodness of humans versus the evil of humanity. It's always in the middle. Anybody can go either way. We don't know what anybody is thinking. We don't know how evil somebody is who acts like the nicest person ever, like that documentary I saw about Tony Blair, the UK politician. He looks like a nice guy. According to the documentary, made by his own former party members, he was a smart psychopath smiling in public while getting his henchmen to destroy his enemies. Over a lifetime, my trust in people has gone from naive idealism to superficial politeness. I checked out communities when I was younger for communal living. They never work. People want their own private space, plus they get jealous not just over material things. There are always love triangles. I was so naive that I actually traveled around the world looking for a utopia-like place where everybody was happy like in the movies. What I found was people working hard everywhere for money. That's it. I've been to Mazatlan, Puerto Vallarta, and many other tropical places. They're either struggling for money or they want more. My issue is if I become totally cynical right now, then I lose my connection with the human race. John the Baptist in the Bible went to live as a hermit in the desert. We still want some sense of community with our fellow human beings. That's the issue. When do we get like Scrooge and turn our backs on humanity? How much do I get out of being a good guy when people use my goodness for their own selfish ends? Psychology and evil too. I read an article about misanthropy, hate of the human race. The guy said, "I know how disgusting I am. I think I'm a pretty good guy." That means a lot of human race is pretty evil and disgusting. Zecharia Sitchin wrote the book The 12th Planet in 1976, where he claimed to have deciphered some of the many cuneiform tablets the British found in the Middle East between 1850 to 1890. He claimed that a race of space beings called the Anunnaki from the planet Nibiru genetically created the human race because they needed workers to mine gold to take back to their planet to spray into their atmosphere to protect it from radiation. Is this true? I don't know. The story of the creation of Eve in the book of Genesis sounds like this earlier story of genetic engineering. Somebody said the word Adam is derived from the word worker. It's possible that we were created as a worker race then abandoned because we got too unruly. As a Catholic kid, I constantly read the Old Testament in grade school. Later on, before the internet, there were mail order book clubs. I bought a world anthology of history which was about 1,400 pages long, 3 columns per page documenting many of the events in human history. Most of these events were people doing evil things to each other. I've looked at writers writing about their fellow man since the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is at least 4,000 years old. I read the Bible, Ovid's book The Art of Love, then through the internet I watched movies from the 1930s, 40s and 50s. It's the same thing repeated over and over again. Man's inhumanity to man. The 1930s to the 1950s was the golden age of movie making. They had to come up with new ideas all the time. They kept coming up with new stories of people in conflict with each other. I just watched Of Human Bondage with Bette Davis, about a selfish woman who uses men. Some people are not capable of love, but they're capable of charm. People use people all the time. How many relationships or marriages are people using each other, not loving each other? Most of us master the ability to look nice, pro-social, and non-threatening, but evil lurks inside of us all. I think I'm a decent guy. People disrespect me and do bad things to me. It's hard to control anger. A lot of murderers are not typically evil people. They were normal people in a situation where somebody went too far in bullying them, so they reacted out of anger. It's who we are. I concluded if I don't get too involved with people, I can't get into a fight or a disagreement. I was a naive young man with a positive view of humanity, but I've seen so much lying, cheating, stealing, abuse, exploitation, hate, anger, jealousy and violence that I feel best when I don't go beyond superficial relationships with people because I want to avoid conflicts. Many people are trifling, trivial creatures of ego. They seek to hurt other people because they might think they're superior. They're frustrated at life in general or have such beaten down egos that they try to bring themselves up by putting other people down. The paradox is that almost everyone thinks they're a decent person and the rest of the world is messed up, so you got a bunch of assholes all thinking they're the morally righteous superior person in any situation. I watched some interviews with lifer criminals. Many of them rationalized what they did. Some said it was cops and robbers. It was nothing personal. They didn't realize the damage they did to people. Like if you rob a bank, you're not just stealing money, you're terrorizing the people there. I watched Sammy the Bull Gravano's YouTube channel, which is a nostalgic look at his life in the mafia, but got tired of it after I realized he could never admit to being a low-life evil scumbag. He saw himself as an ethical criminal, the guy who admitted to killing 19 people. That's the way we think. We're always the good guys. Everyone else are the scum. It's a big shortcoming of being human. We can't admit to ourselves how nasty we are. Jealousy is huge. Women are jealous of each other. Many women want to be the prettiest in the room. Watch those Real Housewives shows on Bravo TV. They get older narcissistic women together to pretend to be friends. They pay them and they get on TV. Some of them use the publicity to sell stuff. The real purpose of the show is to watch the gossip and the backstabbing. I believe society helps us become jealous with all the commercials on TV touting a lavish lifestyle. Social media has brought this image of living large to a new level. The true crime show Snapped is just one true crime show out of many. There are 29 seasons in existence, each season with about 25 episodes. These are mostly about people who have killed people close to them, as in a husband and wife or other family members. Psychology and Evil 3. The human race is more evil than anyone wants to admit. The field of psychology barely covers it. They have the subfield of forensic psychology, but that's it. When I studied psychology, it was about the glorious view of man as with Abraham Maslow's idea of self-actualization. Back then, I was working in bars. I saw the decadence and violence every weekend downtown. I worked at a strip joint, so I often had to go and ask guys to stop standing in the walkway where people walked back and forth. Many guys refused to move. Then I would have to get my buddy bouncers to walk over and tell the guy to move for the smooth operation of the bar. It was ridiculous stuff, little boys with their little egos. It's never going to end until we genetically re-engineer all of us. I started listening to Chuck Harder on the For the People radio network around 1987, before the internet ever existed. Chuck talked about the corruption everywhere all the time. Even if I don't believe half of what he said, half of it made sense. That's how I broke from society. I realized every institution is corrupt. There are always a few egomaniacs at the top of every organization controlling everything for their own selfish ends. I transitioned from being a naive kid who thought I was living in a good society where most people were community-oriented and decent to realizing everybody is a prisoner to money, everybody guards their own self-interest. Almost everybody will sacrifice their morality and decency to protect their own interests if need be. I worked for some NGOs and government education departments and realized a lot of these people here are just lazy bums who couldn't make it in the capitalist world, so they came over here pretending to be decent people to get a job to scam what they could, including slacking off, which is big time in government jobs, stealing time, not doing useful work. Now as an older man, it's not just the violent crime that gets me. It's the general corruption everywhere. There are left-wing and right-wing radio, TV, and internet shows. They're constantly hating on each with lies. The guy on the YouTube Young Turks channel, I believe they call him Senk or something like that, said he kind of liked the Ottawa trucker protests, but his channel and ideology said you're not allowed to like them. They're a bunch of right-wing rednecks. I heard the Choice people, they don't call themselves pro-choice anymore, do a show on Democracy Now! Radio acting like they were upholding some great social justice ideal for women's rights. I never heard them once during that show state the fact that we are fighting for abortion, the right to kill our unborn babies, not because they pose a threat to our lives but because if we're not wise enough to use birth control, then we should be able to kill our babies if we get pregnant. They use the term choice as though they're fighting for a great human right, the right to kill their babies. Where are the rights of these unborn babies for all these left-wing liberals supposedly fighting for social justice? I've seen photographs of aborted babies on a table. Somebody said they sell these fetuses to drug companies to use in creating vaccinations. This the human race? There are extraterrestrials watching us. It was proven in the 1976 Travis Walton UFO encounter with ETs who were trying to help him after he fell unconscious. Have they seen us kill our own babies? What species in the universe kill their own babies? On the Jeff Rense radio, he said somewhere there is some bill or law that gives new mothers the right to kill a baby within 28 days after birth. No matter how much bullshit you shroud it in, we are killing our own babies, which is murder. It defines the human race. It's like the video I saw of hatchling crocodiles eating their siblings. That's where the human race is at a moral level. After Cain killed Abel, somebody said thou shalt not kill. There are absolute moral standards. Once the human race crosses them, we define ourselves. We are what we are. Everybody is a liar for their own interests. People started local chapters of the Black Lives Matter organization to supposedly help get racial justice for African Americans. Many are getting arrested for stealing the funds that they raised, which were supposed to go to help their fellow Negro brothers and sisters, but they kept that money for themselves. Every human is a hypocrite for their beliefs, even if they're morally wrong. To me, everything is corrupt, but I'm cool about it. I don't dwell on it. I'm pleasant to the people I interact with, but I double check all my paperwork and stuff like that. My trust for the human race is minimal. Genetically speaking, we are what we are. We cannot change our fundamental nature with religion, psychology, free schooling, massive indoctrination in the media, dictatorship, or even drugs. The only way we can progress as a species is to genetically re-engineer ourselves with anger, jealousy, and violence taken out of us. Some people would say we can't mess with the fundamental genome. It would change us. If we had anger taken out of us, it might make us wimps without the drive to fight for self-preservation. We have the Borg from science fiction, the communal collective mind. Everybody has the same motive for the good of the hive. We have to figure out how to get beyond being so selfish. All through history, people have been taking stuff from others and hoarding it for themselves. How can we get over this idea of being so greedy? We know some animals hoard like squirrels. It's part of our nature. Until we destroy this part of ourselves, the human race is doomed as it is now. Very few people live happy lives. Everybody is so desperate for money. It's not just the poor people who need to pay rent. The advertising machine targets everybody. You never have enough. When I was in graduate school, I was getting credit card offers and offers in the mail to buy a new car, no money down. I have known people with professional jobs in deep debt. It's a constant upgrade. I was watching some TV show and the woman was discussing what type of marble to get for the splashback for her sink. I'm thinking, who gives a crap? I'm thankful I have a sink. Then we get to the art aficionados. Visual art is junk. There is nothing mysterious, cool, or aesthetic about it. Somebody paints a silly painting. So what? I did that in grade primary. People are starving all over the world according to UNICEF, while some people over here are so bored with life they're buying paintings, acting like it's a refined pursuit for sophisticated people. The pretense is incredible. The love of money is the root of all evil. 1 Timothy 6:10. Psychology and Evil 4. I've loved animals all my life. They have all returned the love and never betrayed me. Why can't people be more like them? The big YouTube animal channel is the dodo. They have hundreds of heartwarming true animal videos. Some TV channel, it might have been Animal Planet or National Geographic, did a 1-hour show about the guy in Central America who rescued a baby crocodile who had been shot by an arrow. He nursed it back to the health, then released it 10 miles from where he lived. The crocodile came back. There are scenes of him in the water play fighting with this adult crocodile. He used to put on shows. The crocodile died of natural causes. This is supposedly a reptile that operates on the lower brainstem and has no capacity for love. I found these videos on YouTube. Meet Wally, my emotional support gator beast buddies. Farmer rescues injured crocodile. 20 years later this happened. The man who swims with crocodiles. We can make bonds with animals that are much more loving and loyal than we make with humans. The human race will never be a loving race towards each other. It never has been in the past, nor is there any place on earth where people don't bash each other's heads in. We have to fundamentally change our genetic code if we want a better human society. The human race tends more towards evil than good. Psychology tries to put everyone into some category. They say only about 3% of people are psychopaths. We're all psychopaths. All human beings have the range of full evil within themselves. Every human is good and evil in one. The Bible, a common-sense book about life written 2,500 to 2,000 years ago, is a cautionary tale about how evil the human race is. The modern science of psychology does not want to adequately address how evil we actually are. The book of Proverbs is a lesson in trying to control anger. Dante covered the 7 deadly sins in the Inferno in the Divine Comedy in 1371. The 1936 movie Green Pastures with an all-black cast is a look at the good and evil within the human race. I was brought up as a Catholic Christian going to Catholic school. I had religion class almost every morning until I was about 14 years old. When you study the Old Testament of the Bible, you get many stories about how disgusting and evil human beings are. Most people think they're good, cool people, but we can all get angry on a dime. We've all done evil, disgusting, shameful things in our lives, even the good ones among us. On balance, people are more selfish to evil than good. If we weren't, we wouldn't have fat rich people in big houses with homeless people over there dying of starvation. As far as the nobility thing goes, I see a lot of overweight slobs, gamblers, video gamers, alcoholics, and drug addicts who want to try to escape from their mundane jobs as much as they can. The 10 Commandments say don't lie, steal, cheat, kill, or sleep with a married person. Dante Alighieri said we're proud, greedy, lustful, gluttonous, lazy, angry, and vengeful. The Old Testament is a blueprint for what's going on today. Psychology and Evil 5. Politics always degenerates to power and corruption. Good people get into politics, but almost all of them are corrupted within a few years. The general ideology is that the system is screwed no matter what you do. It runs on Machiavellian principles. Evil runs the world. That's the way it is. There is nothing anyone can do about it. The Bible says the world is ruled by a supernatural evil empire in Ephesians 6:12. The big boys in charge before you ever got there in any system anywhere offer you money and favors to go along with them. If you don't, they either destroy your reputation or kill you, i.e., Confessions of an Economic Hitman. In the parlance, they said take your pick, gold or lead, money or a bullet. In the lingo, they compromise people. Jeffrey Epstein had a Bahamas island supposedly wired up to secretly videotape rich and powerful people having sex with underage women to compromise them if need be. This was supposedly financed by the spy agency of a certain country. Young people are coming up all the time with ambition for whatever reason. Some are naive enough to think I'm a good person, I want to help the world. There are vetting processes everywhere. In college, if a connected professor sees someone with capable qualities who shares his view, he might offer him an internship to a company or organization made up insiders who share a common view of life, which I would describe as selfish elitism. People in the top companies and organizations that run the world look for ambitious young people who understand that the world works through protecting your interests at any cost. They find those people, offer them scholarships and internships to further weed them out and indoctrinate them. We have organizations like the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission, often called think tanks, and big financial companies like Goldman Sachs, the Federal Reserve Bank, etc. These international organizations run the world. They look for people who share their views, then groom them. That's how it works. If you come on the scene acting some bleeding heart liberal, they smile at you and say you're a good person, but behind the scenes your career as a future leader is over. They say presidents are selected, not elected. The grooming process starts early. People already there need to be sure that you're a yes man who will do what you're told. If you think for yourself, you're gone. If you can give good speeches and act like a good old boy for the people when you're really a Machiavellian, you're in. I watched a number of political documentaries. I saw the one for Anthony Weiner, one for George W. Bush, and one for Tony Blair. The one for Tony Blair showed this guy with a friendly public face who was a greedy psychopath behind the scenes. Granted, the filmmaker was biased, but much of it was true. The game is to get what you can for yourself. The world is too screwed for anyone to actually help the human race in any significant way. People in charge are too selfish to let that happen. They always get a cut for themselves before helping the unwashed masses. I liken it to the mafia in New York City in the 1980s. They controlled everything. They got their cut everywhere before the FBI swooped in with the RICO Act. The mafia is an example of greed unfettered. It won't stop until a bigger force conquers it. There are unproven conspiracies that we have the technology for free energy and anti-gravity, but the people in charge don't let them out because they would lose their base of money and control over the people if there was wireless electricity and easy-to-use flying machines. In the Bible, human beings always screwed it up. It wasn't just Sodom and Gomorrah, Noah's flood, and the Tower of Babel. In many Bible stories, people degenerate to evil. Psychology embraces the humanist Abraham Maslow theory of the noble man striving for self-actualization. Are most people generic gluttons and mooks? They make some money, then go over to the fun, easy side of comfort, hedonism, and entertainment. Getting high on something is off the charts. My proof of human evil is in the fact of all the poverty, unemployment, homelessness, and misery out there. All those phony liberals in our phony democracies haven't solved these basic human problems yet. Personally, I'm against the idea of politicians as representatives because they don't represent the people. It's a fraud to have phony selfish representatives claiming to represent the people. I want to go straight to an online voting agency where the people create the issues that are important to them and vote on them. If the people were to vote directly, they would not vote for all the money that's spent on the military. I don't believe anyone should get a free ride. In the book of Thessalonians they say if you don't work, you don't eat. I believe in creating a sustainable economy with enough jobs for everybody, but then stop the development and keep it nice where it is. We can't enjoy a good thing. Somebody is always scheming to make more money. Canada was nice when there were 20 million people here. Now it's 40 million. Some politicians in the Liberal Party say they want 100 million people because they want Canada to be a superpower. Constant economic expansion is destroying everything. Psychology and Evil 6. The purpose of all gossip, talking about others behind their backs, is to put someone down to build your ego up for the moment. There is a silent one-upmanship game in every group of people anytime, anywhere except maybe for true Christians, this silent ego thing of I'm better than him or her. My evidence is in the Real Housewives and other reality shows. There is conflict with any small group of people that get together. Dante called it the first deadly sin, pride. I watched many of the MTV Real World shows to see the conflicts develop, the petty bickering of I'm better than you, he disrespected me, which is basically saying I'm better than you. In WWE wrestling, back in the day, the host would ask Razor Ramon how he was doing. Razor Ramon always said, better than you, Chico. It was meant to be part of the arrogance of his character. I'm better than you. I saw some psychobabble social psychology video on YouTube. The guy was at the local horse race track analyzing the people there by where they stood, what they wore, etc. To him, it's all a big public show of social standing. I'm better than you. The TV news, the shows, and documentaries are focused on hate and evil. The sitcoms are about putting someone down. Society's latest new bad guy is the middle-aged white guy, portrayed as the incompetent, uncool, bumbling fool. The left-wing media, as in CNN, MSNBC, Democracy Now! And YouTube's Young Turks, TYT, portray themselves as the loving people out to help the human race, but everything they do is about hating right-wing conservatives. Watch the hate on all the news networks. There's left-wing and right-wing. That's their bread and butter. I have never seen as much hate for any human being as I saw for Donald J. Trump. When he was running for election in 2016, I used to go for a walk in the morning and listen to several radio stations. I counted 94 days in a row when they hated on Trump. I used to go on and wait for how long before someone hated on Trump. I have never seen that much hate anywhere else in my lifetime. With Nixon, they let him leave. He didn't even do anything. Some of his boys broke into a Democratic Party office and a psychiatrist's office without his knowledge, and he took the fall. Is hate natural, or is it a disharmony in the soul? I don't trust any left-wing liberals who say they want to help people. They want the power to run the government like the right wing does. Right-wing conservatives are for business and industry. There is no hypocrisy there. Work hard for the economy and you'll get your reward. Don't be a wimp expecting free money. Within the media, it's job security to take the left-wing side, pretend to be one of the good folk, then constantly hate on conservatives. Everybody is always whining about some trivial garbage. Nobody is ever satisfied. It's part of the advertising in a capitalist, pop culture world. To be cool, you gotta have the latest stuff. We hate on business tycoons who work hard creating an easy life for you. The late-night talk shows aren't funny anymore. They're hating someone who doesn't match the cool political ideology. I want to laugh. I don't want to deal with the world's bullshit. Hate is fun for a while. It unites people to hate something or someone in common. It's energizing to have someone or something to hate, but it gets old because if you're a hater, sooner or later, someone is going to hate on you. It's like the dearly departed Rodney King said, why can't we all just get along? The only sane way to live is to focus on living a good life for yourself and stay away from the world's BS. Psychology and Evil 7. I think the human race is evil because of my experience with getting ripped off, lied to, abused and exploited all my life by people, some of whom masqueraded as my friends. I was taught about Sodom and Gomorrah in Catholic catechism class. I know about Paul's letter to the Ephesians. Ephesians 6:12. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. God, in lieu of the Anunnaki, destroyed the human race in the flood because the human genome was genetically flawed by the Nephilim, the fallen angels who had sex with women in Genesis 4. It's in the Bible. The question is, did it really happen? In any case, the human genome is not good. Is your life centered around making money for material survival, comfort, and greed rather than enjoying the freedom to do what you want? Are you self-centered? Of course, everyone is, but it's not cool to admit what we really are. Do you have an ego that wants revenge if you feel disrespected? How trivial and petty are you? How easy is it for you to get angry? Do you get jealous of other people? Think of all the tribes that somebody created to keep us distracted if you buy into the stuff which is being discussed every day in the media. Male versus female. Liberal versus conservative. Rich versus poor. US vs. Russia. Illegal immigration versus open borders. MGTOW versus METOO. Married versus single. Alcohol and drugs versus sober. Anti-abortion versus the right to kill my baby. Enlightened versus brainwashed. Pretty versus ugly. Overweight versus normal weight. College educated versus less education. Professional versus blue-collar worker. Management versus worker. Toronto Maple Leafs vs. Boston Bruins. White versus black. Black vs. Latino. Old versus young. Gay versus straight. Old gay versus young gay. Catholic vs. Protestant. Jews vs. Arabs. Arabs vs. Persians. Armenian vs. Arab. Christian vs. Muslim. Jew vs. Muslim. Hindu vs. Muslim. Buddhist vs. Muslim. Rap versus real music. Meta versus male chauvinist pig. You never see this in psychology books, how evil, selfish, greedy, angry and jealous all of us are beneath the social facades. It's all sanitized BS for a naive college crowd. Psychology and Evil 8. People do bad things because it's a part of human nature. It's not mental illness. It's who you are. Evil thoughts are natural. Many people act on them. Many people want to get something for nothing or hurt someone. Anger is big in the book of Proverbs and as one of Dante's 7 deadly sins. It's not mental illness. It's human. Oppositional defiant disorder is a way of saying someone doesn't want to conform to society. These could be harmless free people or they could be criminals. If you did something bad, it's because you were a scumbag at that moment, not because of some mental illness you supposedly have. Everybody is a scumbag. Let's not shroud it in a big fiction called mental illness, but it creates jobs. Dante called pride the worst of the 7 deadly sins. Pride is another word for ego, vanity, or narcissism. Many people want to be stars, to be a big shot, to have lots of money and be admired. The social sciences fail because they give us a delusional, flowery view of life. The science of psychology is an oxymoron. There is no science to human beings. We have Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. Some people are trying to create a matrix of controlling the human race mostly through the mass media but with drugs too. If they can get everyone on happy mental health drugs, that would be a victory for them, the controllers at the top. All those people who work for the United Nations got their nice houses and their nice things while half of the world lives in poverty. It's human nature, do as I say because I'm superior to you, but don't do as I do because I'm a greedy pig at heart. I worked for several nonprofits and departments of education as a young man. I quickly realized that there were a few good people in the bunch, but most were scammers there for the easy job, to steal what they could and pick up chicks or guys. I saw so many phonies that I lost my idealism by the time I was 30 years old. There are plenty of supposed pillars of society doing immoral acts after preaching against them, so the lesson is that we're all trying to take care of ourselves. Most of us cross moral lines for own well-being. Any human can go angry and violent on a turn of a dime. Jails are full of these people. People in senior homes beat each other up. Buddhists kill Muslims because they're a threat to their survival. They say about 1 to 3% of all people have the antisocial personality disorder or psychopathy/sociopathy. I say we're all like that beneath the sociable exteriors. Many of us are wage slaves, doing what we must to earn money. Many of us fall into the materialism status trap, always wanting more stuff and bigger houses to fill our egos up. I've had people try to cheat me right to my face. When I caught one guy, he tried to laugh it off like it was a joke, no big deal. He was trying to act like ha, no big deal. This is the human gene pool. The psychology field minimizes the trivial, selfish, vain, evil hearts that live inside of everyone. If you don't believe me, there are plenty of true crime stories on YouTube. And that thing about the Dalai Lama being a good old boy who wants happiness and peace. That cult called Enlightenment run by Keith Raniere had him speak there for a fee. They have now been outed as a pyramid scheme sex ring with underage women. He's just another guy trying to make money with his gimmick. He's got his hedonistic side like everybody. At the end of the 1996 movie The Island of Dr. Moreau, he says humans are already as unstable as anything Moreau created. Chapter 2. Does the human race have an evil nature? Losing our moral standards as a society. Christianity gave my generation and the generations before it a moral compass. People had traditional values. There are absolutes in life like the 10 Commandments. I went to school for psychology. They taught me the idea of relative morality. They called it values clarification. The idea was to not judge evil people. Accept them, try to understand them. According to them, every individual gets to pick their own morals. There are no moral absolutes. Understand evil acts from the point of view of the people doing them. It was then that I realized that psychology was trying to erode the Christian principles I was raised on. If we don't have absolute morals, we have nothing. Evil is evil. If you try to water it down, it gets muddled until it becomes what George Orwell said. Good becomes evil. Evil becomes good. We have abortion, the killing of unborn babies, as a human right. Look at our sexual morals. 50 years ago, homosexuality was considered perverted in every culture. Now it's mainstream. We now have people advocating for consenting sexual relations between children and adults. There are groups like NAMBLA, the North American Man-Boy Love Association, gently advocating for man-boy affection that they want to be sexual because they are child fetishists, aka child molesters. Some people that work for children's entertainment companies put their message out subtly in their TV shows and movies. On the ABC Good Morning America show, they have or had a host named Michael Strahan who was a former NFL football player, so he's perceived as a man's man. There's a clip from the show that I found at YouTube at. The 11-year-old trailblazing drag kid Desmond is amazing. Good Morning America. This was from 2018. This is an 11-year-old boy that claims he wants to be a transvestite. In my day, we were playing hockey at that age. I remember a little bit of puppy love going on around grade 6 and 7, but we were a bunch of innocent kids playing in the schoolyard, allowed to grow up naturally. This is on mainstream TV. The message is that it's okay. It's not okay to sexualize children. When people get so bored with life that they start changing genders, it's a sign that something is wrong in society. Evil people pushing moral limits always say it's beautiful that someone is expressing themselves freely. The problem is that one person's idea of beauty is another person's idea of perversion. Some things are better left in private in the closet. Society is taken down an immoral path one step at a time. This is how it works. There are evil people doing this on a conscious level. Some people think a supernatural Satan runs the world. The Ten Commandments. Here are the Ten Commandments, Exodus 20:1-17. Thou shalt have no other gods beside me. 2. Thou shalt not make to thyself an idol, nor likeness of anything, whatever things are in the heaven above, and whatever are in the earth beneath, and whatever are in the waters under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down to them, nor serve them, for I am the Lord thy God, a jealous God, recompensing the sins of the fathers upon the children, to the third and fourth generation to them that hate me, and bestowing mercy on them that love me to thousands of them, and on them that keep my commandments. 3. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord thy God will not acquit him that takes his name in vain. 4. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days thou shalt labor, and shalt perform all thy work. But on the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God, on it thou shalt do no work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy servant, nor thy maidservant, thine ox nor thine ass, nor any cattle of thine, nor the stranger that sojourns with thee. For in 6 days the Lord made the heaven and the earth, and the sea and all things in them, and rested on the seventh day, therefore the Lord blessed the seventh day, and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that it may be well with thee, and that thou mayest live long on the good land, which the Lord thy God gives to thee. 6. Thou shalt not commit adultery. 7. Thou shalt not steal. 8. Thou shalt not kill. 9. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, nor his field, nor his servant, nor his maid, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor any of his cattle, nor whatever belongs to thy neighbor. The 7 deadly sins and 7 capital virtues. Dante Alighieri's 7 deadly sins from the Inferno are: lust, lust for attention and sex; gluttony, lust for self-indulgence; sloth, lust for avoidance, laziness; envy, lust for possessions and personal gain; wrath, lust for vengeance; greed, lust for money and power; pride, lust for greatness and supremacy; lust, fornication, perversion; gluttony, waste, overindulgence; greed, treachery, covetousness; sloth, apathy, indifference; wrath, anger, hatred; envy, jealousy, malice; pride, vanity, narcissism. The 7 capital virtues originate from a poem written by a Christian poet, Aurelius Prudentius Clemens, in the 4th century called Psychomachia, meaning battle of souls, about 7 virtues defeating 7 vices. The 7 capital virtues, also called the 7 contrary virtues or the 7 heavenly virtues, are: chastity, purity, abstinence; temperance, humanity, equanimity; charity, benevolence, generosity, sacrifice; diligence, persistence, effortfulness, ethics; patience, forgiveness, mercy; kindness, satisfaction, compassion; humility, bravery, modesty, reverence. Humility is the virtue that counters pride. Liberality, or generosity, is the virtue that is counter to greed, the sin of immoderate desire for earthly things. Chastity is the counter virtue to the sin of lust. Meekness, or patience, is the virtue that counters the sin of unjust anger, also called wrath or rage. Temperance, the virtue of temperance or abstinence, counters the sin of gluttony. Kindness, or brotherly love or love for one's neighbor, is the virtue which counters the sin of envy. Diligence, or persistence, is the virtue which acts as a counter to the sin of sloth. Lawrence Kohlberg and his theory of moral development. Lawrence Kohlberg created a theory of moral development with a bunch of stages that don't work because all of us can get angry quickly and we're all natural sinners. Lawrence Kohlberg implied that intellectually superior, high-quality people develop morality to the point where they think and act like Jesus Christ. He didn't acknowledge that all human beings live in the same gutter. People can be morally good all their lives, then all of a sudden beat their wives, kill their neighbor, or do something evil. Every human being is the same distance from negative natural emotions like anger, jealousy, hate, pride, etc. My anger comes unnaturally when someone acts like a dipstick to me. Kohlberg's sixth or highest stage is called universal ethical principles, where the person goes beyond the fifth stage of the social contract to be a saint in thought and deed. He was talking about himself as a saintly ascended master type of person above doing anything evil because of an internal moral compass that predisposes him to be good in all situations. This is either a straight lie or a delusional lie, because we're all gluttons somewhere in private. Everybody has got a stash of some vice somewhere. It could be the Pope, the Dalai Lama, everybody. We're all human beings with the same nature. Most people with money are addicted to some selfish excess, at the very least comfort. I started out as a liberal idealist, realized the human race is mostly about a bunch of selfish people masquerading as good people, so I smile politely at everyone and keep relations at superficial niceness because I don't want conflicts with people. I know everybody is full of their own delusions. Kohlberg's moral theory is another narcissistic delusion in the guise of psychological theory about how good the human race is. The author, Lawrence Kohlberg, is doing a shout out to himself by coming up with this theory stating how good and wholesome the human race is, implying that he's one of the stellar ones at the top of his 6 stages of morality. There are no moral levels. We're all human. We can all go evil anytime. Selfishness is a natural self-preservation trait. Where self-preservation turns to greed is a muddled area. Capitalism has finessed the art of greed and envy by showing us junk in the media all the time, saying it's all good. They're always showing us ads telling us to buy things we don't need. The Academy Awards show attracts millions of viewers looking to see what our manufactured celebrities are doing. You can see the cool people in Los Angeles on TV, but there are tons of homeless people camping out on the Santa Monica City Hall lawn and near the beach north of the boardwalk just a few miles away. They never show you that on TV. Type Los Angeles homeless into YouTube. I was brought up learning the Bible through catechism classes in Catholic school. They taught me that there is not one just human being, not one in Romans 3:9-20. Jesus said, "You who have not sinned cast the first stone," in John 8:7. They taught us about the evils of man from Adam and Eve through to Cain, Sodom and Gomorrah, Noah's flood and the Tower of Babel. Kohlberg comes along 2,000 years later and puts out a psychological theory of morality that seems to negate that fact that everyone has evil inside of them. People in the field of psychology seem to say that intelligent people, implying themselves the people studying this stuff, are not evil. They imply that intelligent people, meaning themselves as system academics and professionals, reach a state of goodness and purity where they are the beacons of society, when in truth, the world is ruled by an evil empire of intelligent politician, banker, business, military psychopaths. We seem to make the mistake that intelligent people are good, that they don't use their intelligence for evil. Virtually everything about the goodness of man is propaganda. There are no saints anywhere. The proof is in the material excess, poverty, homelessness and unemployment everywhere. We start off naive, idealistic and good as we're taught in grade school and church, but as we wise up to reality through experience, we realize everyone is a potential scumbag. The law of survival is that we had better get what we can to take care of ourselves, because nobody gives a crap about us and we don't want to end up destitute like those homeless bums out there. So it's the opposite of what Kohlberg says. He says wisdom brings benevolence. I say wisdom brings reality, which is to get money, hoard it and watch your back. CNBC's TV show American Greed. Watch CNBC's American Greed somewhere online. Try put lockrhd.io. to see all the con artists everywhere in business, including selling self-help success info. There were 14 seasons last time I checked. Misanthropy/hate everybody. I hate mankind, for I think myself one of the best of them, and I know how bad I am. Joseph Barrett. Misanthropy is a hate of everybody. Misogyny is a hate of women. Some people hate everybody. Some people hate women, men, gays, Jews, blacks, gypsies, or other groups of people. The thing about hate is that most people are politically correct enough to not let their biases and hates out around other people, but a lot of people have no great love for their fellow man. Many of us have been used, abused, exploited, and betrayed by our fellow human beings. Is it any wonder there's a stereotype about the cranky old man or bitchy old woman? People just get fed up and decide to minimize contact with other people because they don't need the social contact anymore. It's a pain in the butt to them to socialize, and besides, they don't trust anyone anymore anyway. What could you possibly expect if you watch the news every night, then all them crime shows? What gets me is all those fake shows called entertainment news shows. They're really shows to give regular people some satisfaction out of seeing our so-called celebrities screw up. They love exploiting tragedy. What about all the poor people? I'm sure they have no love for arrogant rich people. Psychology and evil websites. Moral Brain, Moral Bible. By Dr. Joel Y. Ruttman. msn.com/n-us/news/world/does-moral-bible-or-the-brain-book-book-review. Psychology of Evil, Michaels, Kim, 9788793297005. Psychology of Evil, Highbrow. Go highbrow.com/portfolio/psychology-of-evil. The Psychology of Evil, Philosophy Talk. philosophytalk.org/shows/psychology-evil. 25 examples of everyday evil, Town Hall. townhall.com. Dark Personality Theory. Ideapod.com. What actually is evil? psychologytoday.com/us/blog/finding-purpose/202106/what. Psychology of Evil, Energetic Synthesis. energeticscienthesis.com/3743 Psychology of Evil. Evil Psychology Wiki Fandom. psychology.fandom.com/wiki/evil. The Real Meaning of Good and Evil. psychologytoday.com/201308/The Real Meaning Good and Evil. Philip Zimbardo, The Psychology of Evil. TED Talk. TED.com/talk/Philip_Zimbardo_the_psychology_of_evil. COVID and the Psychology of Evil. Global Village Institute. gvinstitute.org/ciovid-and-psychology-of-evil. 10 Vile Ways Psychology is Used for Evil, List Verse. listverse.com/2014/03/05/10 Vile Ways Psychology is Use. Good and Evil and Psychological Science. psychologicalscience.org/observer/good-and-evil-and. Philip Zimbardo, The Psychology of Evil, What is Evil? karishwartsanthology.wordpress.com/2014/04/10/Philip Zimbardo. Is everyone crazy, deceptive, or evil? Psychology Today. psychologytoday.com/202205/Is everyone crazy, deceptive, or evil? Charles Manson and the psychology behind his evil. exploreingyourmind.com/Charles Manson Psychology Evil Dash. The Four Roots of Evil, The Psychology of Evil. Chelsea Barbo SAA.wordpress.com/06/week 4 The 4R. Chapter 3. Are we good, bad, or indifferent? We all have evil in us. Except for truly cruel, evil people and a few saints, most people spend most of their time between self-centered and selfish, 50 to 75 on the morality scale. A few are really evil, near 100, and a few are saints near 0. This is why I don't buy into society's religious delusions, the New Age kumbaya shtick, or the ideology that career or business status and material wealth equate to a progressively higher moral standard. Everybody is as primal as I am. I don't care who you are, priest, politician, or doctor. You live in the same hedonistic fantasy land I do in the privacy of your own mind. My rule is don't hurt other living things. I'm free enough to know how self-centered I am, yet wise enough to know I must do something useful in helping others, both to net me enough money to live freely and to attract the friendship, love, and casual companions I want. Everybody gets angry and thinks violent thoughts. In your pure state, you are your true nature. It has lots of noble, great stuff in it and lots of selfish, carnal stuff in it too. I'm perfectly aware of the whole me. I know how good, noble, primal, self-centered, and selfish I am. I don't deny my violent and sexual thoughts when I get them. I don't consider myself evil, but I feel entitled to live my life freely, hassled by none. So if somebody gets in my way by being an asshole as opposed to the government, which I have no choice but to obey, I feel the anger and I have those primal feelings of violence to destroy what's interfering with me. I know that I can't impose my base, negative qualities onto other people if I want to have friends and stay out of jail, so I control them like most people do. I have a rich fantasy life, as I suspect all people have to some extent, both G and X-rated, but most of us are functional enough to know other people don't want to deal with our fantasies. We got our fantasies in our own minds, so we play out our roles as decent citizens while having a separate existence in our private thoughts, even though almost nobody admits to who they really are except for a few fringe, erotica, and sex writers like me. I expressed some of my sensuous and romantic musings in the sex and love book I've written. I feel like a modern-day Marquis de Sade in the sense that he was free enough to express some of the thoughts and desires that he naturally felt within himself, but he was kinky BDSM, while I'm pretty well straight vanilla with the occasional fudge brownie thrown in just for fun. The point is that we're free to be who we are, the way we're born, if we know that we have an individual purity and choose to follow it in the face of all the indoctrinating forces of the world trying to turn us into good capitalists who work functional jobs, watch TV, then constantly spend our money on things we don't need. I release my positive energy and know my dark side in the privacy of my mind. I don't repress these thoughts. I think them through, but you would never know how close I live to my pure, primal self if you met me and talked to me, because I'm a perfect, superficial, one-dimensional gentleman in public the way I was brought up to be at Catholic grade school, but behind closed doors, my life is rich, decadent, bohemian, free, and sensuous. I am who I was born to be by nature, freely, without repression, guilt, or shame. This is a big step towards enlightenment, to get past all the self-censoring controls they tried to instill into you in grade school, in Cub Scouts, in religion class, and in the patriotic diatribe the politicians and military leaders try to instill into us through their speeches on TV. Your life should be a free exploration of who you are because you were born that way by nature. Discover what's good inside of you, pass it on to both earn a living and share your life with other people, and don't hurt any living thing. There's a big bohemian, romantic, aesthetically inspired world of fantasy, lust, fun, adventure, and creativity inside of everyone. The question is, how much will you live it out versus how much will you buy into the reward system of the world based on material goods and pop culture entertainment? The joy of constantly letting out the natural energy within oneself is the key to happiness. Character and morality. Circumstances don't make you, they reveal who you are. At some point, when you're by yourself thinking about your life, you will judge yourself for what you've done. In every human being, there is such a high potential for goodness and such a high potential for evil. Grand Buddha Shagalicious. You can't buy a reputation nor earn it in school. You have to live it. Act in such a way that a child would be proud of you. Watch your thoughts. They become words, which become actions, which become habits, which become character. Mahatma Gandhi's 7 sins. Commerce without morality. Knowledge without character. Pleasure without conscience. Politics without principle. Science without humanity. Wealth without work. Worship without sacrifice. If you feel unpleasant and ashamed, then you know what you're doing is wrong. Everybody knows when they're violating basic goodness. To deny it is to deny they have a brain. We're born with morality. My pets know what they can do to hurt me and they don't do it. Why? Because they know. They were born like that. I feel that I always intuitively knew what was right and wrong. When I was doing something wrong, I always knew but did it anyway. There is black and white and many shades of gray. We always change depending on our mood and the probability of gain versus the risk of getting caught and punished, so we're always changing in our place on the spectrum of good and evil. Some people are inherently good and some are inherently evil, but most are shades of gray. When they feel good, they're usually good, nice, and pleasant. When they feel bad, they're hateful, evil, and antisocial. People are generally emotional creatures. When you feel bad, the most natural thing to do is to snap at others and do bad things to them to release your angst and bring yourself up a notch. This could be the most common sin of all, to lash out at others when you're not feeling so hot so as to somehow displace some of your negative energy onto them. Character is what you do when nobody is looking. One time, I was in the bakery department of a supermarket and there was a woman there who thought nobody else was around, so she was stuffing donuts down her throat. She looked well dressed, 30ish, like any respectable yuppie, but I saw this one act that revealed her true character to me: somebody looking to steal something if the opportunity presented itself. Character is who you are when somebody steals your parking spot. You see a laptop left on a park bench with somebody's name it, you hit a parked car in a parking lot and there's nobody around, or when that fat woman of a different ethnic group races to cut you off with a full shopping cart while you only got 2 items. What would you do in these situations? The formula for character is to be better and not bitter. We all have moral codes built into us. Just like animals intuitively know they shouldn't bite other animals unless it's to protect themselves or get food, all people too inherently know what's right or wrong, even though they might choose not to act by this moral compass inside. Despite everything the psychobabble industry tries to say about morals being formed as a function of our upbringing, I beg to differ. It's inside of you when you're born. How you choose to manifest it is your business, but once you hit the age of mature thinking, you know perfectly well in any situation what side of the morality scale you're on, either good or bad. We all have a certain basic understanding of what's good and right and what's evil and wrong. We have the free will to follow this internal moral code or go against it and commit actions contrary to our inherent moral natures in order to get some pleasure or material gain for ourselves at someone else's expense. There are some people around called psychopaths who apparently have no moral conscience even though they know what they're doing is wrong. They just don't care. They're so angry at the world that they enjoy seeing others feel some of the same pain they feel, or they're just so self-centered that they don't care about anyone but themselves. In the end, most get what they deserve, either alienation from people, decrepit personalities, death, pain at the hands of someone they wronged, or jail time. For everybody else, when we violate the moral code inside of us, whether we realize it or not, it has negative effects on our entire being, mind, body, and soul. Over time, a lot of violations wear us down and destroy us, so the lesson is try to live according to the moral code you feel inside for both peace of mind and to keep yourself powerful, strong, and noble, free from negative strife with a pure heart, because when you live like this, nothing bothers you or clutters up your mind, so you can simply focus on being who you are without worrying about covering your deceptive ways or looking over your shoulder worrying about somebody you wronged stabbing you in the back in revenge for earlier transgressions. I generally don't judge people on morality because to me, except for a few extremists, we're all the same. We're all self-centered by the law of self-preservation, yet we all like to think we're loving, warm, and compassionate people. Even scummy people think to themselves that they're pretty good, compassionate, and kind. Watch the criminals in jail on TV when they talk about themselves. They always refer to themselves as good guys with a code of honor who made a mistake but now realize it and are ready to move on, being the good, productive citizens of society they naturally are. Ultimately, almost no one is purely good. Most of us are shades of gray, stuck with ourselves in a contradictory noble carnal mix, animals and angels all in one depending on how we feel at the moment. Whenever I come across someone and read them as we all secretly do, I always look to see how much youthful spark and inspiration they have within themselves for life, how much are they able to transcend mundane everyday reality to live in a peaceful, euphoric flow within themselves as true originals unfazed by the world. This is the way I read people. I figure that the more a person loves his or her life, the more visibly happy they are, the more honest and good they are too. Conversely, if they're weak, lost, unfocused, pathetic and miserable, I watch myself because such people are angry, frustrated and bitter and may try to unleash some of that anger on me. I don't believe in a selfless love of humanity because I've never seen it. I've seen plenty of people claiming to love humanity but then they go back to their big homes full of more stuff than they need while half the world is hungry. I'm self-centered by birthright as are all animals, which is what we all are in our true primal states. Accept the fact that everybody loves themselves above all else, that you're self-centered by nature, but get beyond it by knowing that the world won't give you anything until you can subordinate your ego and find the enlightenment within to know that you don't matter to anyone until you can be useful to them in some way. In the grand scheme of things, cooperation, friendship, and peace in relations make you a lot more peaceful and take you a lot further than aggression and selfishness. If you want to be a part of the game of life on planet Earth, carve your own niche out, offer something worthy, pass your light on as a part of the evolution of humanity, be nice and pleasant with people, act as if you're really interested in their lives, smile, have a light-hearted laugh with them, and that's the way you get what you want out of them, be it friendship, love, to sell them something or to put them at ease so you can con them or rob them. The world is truly crazy. If you watch it all as mild entertainment, you'll turn out fine. If you watch it looking for answers to life, you'll lose because there are so many different ideologies and people coming at you all the time, each of them wrong. Everyone and every ideology has a self-centered, egocentric view with their own bias and agenda. What this means in plain English is that everybody is out for themselves before they're out for you, and if they think you're a naive schmuck, they might try to take advantage of you. There are good people out there, but there are many wolves in sheep's clothing, so the bottom line is to be your own base of support and treat everyone else with a polite grain of salt. Smile at them politely, engage them in pleasant, meaningless conversation, but listen to no one but yourself. I've seen saints go evil on a whim and evil people act good when they felt like it. Everyone will sell themselves and cross the proverbial line of morality in the right situation, namely if their comfort level is threatened or if they can gain something at relatively little expense and a low probability of getting caught. Everybody's character is flawed except for the only perfect man in history, Jesus Christ, Son of Him, the Great Father, Gitche Manitou, the Spirit of the Sky. What I generally see is one extreme of society telling us to love God and subordinate ourselves to Him, that pride is the greatest sin, then the other side of materialistic capitalism, the ideology of excess based on the lie that competing with everyone else to get your piece of the pie in the acquisition of money and consumer goods will bring you happiness. The real golden rule is that those who have the gold make the rules. There's a double standard, one set of rules for the haves, another set for the have-nots. Most people in the West live a hypocritical, contradictory mixture of Christianity and capitalism. Free spirits don't. They may watch the circus but never buy into any of it because they always stand alone in the world as autonomous receptacles of independent thought. We never take sides for very long. I may side with Christians in one thing, liberals in another, and hippies in the next thing. Your rights end where other people's rights start. Other than that, I do exactly as I please to live a good life. I'm not bound by other people's version of morality nor character. I'm not a clone. I intuitively know what's good and bad. The 7 deadly sins are pride, envy, anger, gluttony, greed, lust, sloth. Most are sins of materialism and excess. The free spirit lifestyle is a life of balance. I'm not bound by materialism but aware enough to know that money is the instrument of freedom. I don't feel a need to be proud for pride's sake because I'm not out to impress anybody, just to live my life. You should analyze yourself in terms of these 7 sins to see how you deal with them. A free spirit's moral philosophy is roughly the same as the one outlined by Peter McWilliams in the 1996 book Ain't Nobody's Business If You Do, The Absurdity of Consensual Crimes in Our Free Country, which basically says I can do anything I want just as long as I don't cut into other people's rights to live their lives freely unhassled by anyone, including that artificial institution called the government. Some moral one-liners are as follows. Believe in something like yourself or God. Work hard at what you believe in. Speak through your actions. Act the same way when alone as when somebody's watching you. Speak the truth. Don't speak too much. Listen to everyone with respect and interest. Don't gossip, criticize or slander. Be a person of your word. Don't be trivial. Pay your debts. Honor your commitments. Help those in need. Be kind. Love at least one living thing, either person or pet. There are sociological books about morality at number 306. 0973 or HN90 at the library. Skipping towards Gemara. Com. Live and let live. Why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye but pay no attention to the log in your own eye? Luke 6:41. When you forgive, the burden of hate goes off you too. Judge not that you be not judged. For with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and the measure you will give will be the measure you get. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye when there is a log in your own eye? Matthew 7:1-4. But I say to you that here, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. To him who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also, and from him who takes away your cloak, do not withhold your coat as well. Give to everyone who begs from you, and of him who takes away your goods do not ask them again. And as you wish that men would do to you, do so to them. Luke 6:27-31. If you choose to live by these tough biblical principles, good for you. Plato said, be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle, which is probably true, that everyone has their own problems, so don't lay your negative head trip onto them. But by the same token, some people look gift horses in the mouth because they expect to be used or taken one way or another, and others are too proud to ever want help from anybody even if they need it. You don't have to get cynical about helping people, but be wary of it, because people in general are very touchy and will often have contempt for somebody who's helping them because it makes them feel low, like a charity case. You rob them of the self-respect to forge their own paths, and some will resent you for it. On the other hand, some people go to the opposite extreme, kind of like give them an inch, they take a mile without gratitude, expecting it because you're more well off than them, and they'll use it as guilt to try to get you to fork over more of your resources to them. Helping the poor and oppressed is all fine and good, but at times you'll feel poor and oppressed, or just another person trying to eke out a living, at which point, you'll have to take care of your own needs. Finding your soul and living by it is not only your highest need but your obligation to your Creator to manifest the divine seed He placed into you when you were born. You owe it to yourself to find your soul and live by it first before you go off to save the world. It's not self-centered. It's a fact of life. Have the wherewithal to do whatever it takes to find your soul and live by it. Only when you reach this level of enlightenment will you have the genuine, sincere sensibility within yourself to do something to help the world. Be compassionate to yourself first. Most people love themselves way more than they love anybody else, which is all fine and good. If you can treat all other people, even the ones you don't like, with just a modicum of how you treat yourself, you'll be a saint, a very rare commodity in a much maligned world. Love and compassion start with yourself. Love yourself, treat yourself gently, and work out from there to spread your love onto the world. As far as random acts of kindness go, human males are as territorial as male lions. They protect what's theirs, and that's about as far as it goes. Male lions can't stand being around each other because they're all in competition for the same women and the same prey for their food. They'll kill the babies of any female lion they come across who were fathered by another male so she can go into estrus again and they can mate with her. Are we really that much different in our primal states despite the layers of civilization we've surrounded ourselves with? Chicks compete with other chicks for the alpha males, i.e. who's the best provider, so most of the time in relationships, it's not really all-encompassing, cosmic soulmate love. It's more like who can take care of me the best for me and my future kids, not because I love him but what kind of comfortable, secure lifestyle will he provide for me. The TV commercials tell them to color their hair 'cause they're worth it, wear lots of makeup and trendy clothes, all in an effort to stand out as the most glowing beauty in the crowd, which is why most women are in silent competition with each other. They've been brainwashed by the ugly duckling Cinderella Prince Charming fantasy as kids and still hold on to the delusion of being recognized as the most special one in the bunch because they like to think they're outstanding princess celebrity material. This is what they were raised to value and use as their weapons in a male-dominated world. If this ain't narcissistic ego aggrandizement straight from the corporate pop culture ideology, then I don't know what it is, so I rest my case that we're all a bunch of self-centered bitches and bastards, which ain't a bad thing because it's what we really are. Just be mature about it. Don't apologize for living your life your way, doing what you want, but at the same time don't flaunt it, compare yourself to others or put them down, because ultimately, all their opinions of you, either good or bad, mean absolutely nothing if you're an enlightened being living in harmony with your true nature. I live by the live and let live philosophy. You're entitled to your life, I'm entitled to mine. I don't care what you do as long as you don't shove it down my throat or otherwise interfere with my life. You help me, I'll help you. You hurt me, I'll take revenge on you. You ignore me, I'll ignore you. You respect me, I'll respect you. You give me superficial acknowledgement, I'll give you the same, and so on and so forth. I always cater to you as far as you want to go and don't cross the line over it. I can do anything I want to invasions of my personal space in order to remove the threat. On the other hand, I'll engage you with friendship if we like each other, have a meeting of the minds, break bread, share part of the journey and help each other, but with all my friends, we're mature enough to know we only walk so far with each other. The rest is us alone, each carrying our own crosses and pursuing our own private delusions of Eden. Ultimately, we're all loners stuck in our heads going through life alone, known to none but us, each with our own agendas, which is why I never take liberties with anyone and give them all enough personal space such that I don't crowd them or act too personable or nosy. It's always equitable reciprocity with me. Treat me well and help me out in a situation, and I'm empathetic enough to return the favor and show my appreciation by being a good friend. I don't pretend to be all loving, just like you shouldn't pretend to love me just because I'm your fellow brother in the family of man. The people who actually love their fellow man and live by it, like Jesus, Buddha, St. Francis of Assisi or Mother Teresa, are a very small minority, I'd venture to say less than 1% of the population. Even Gandhi didn't love everyone. I'm sure he loved Hindu Indians more than Muslim Indians and loved Muslim Indians more than British people. I'll bet the Honorable Reverend Martin Luther King loved people of his own skin color more than he loved honkies. I see many well-fed, comfortable religious/New Age hypocrites out there living materialistic lives while they consciously know half of the world is starving, but that's a matter for discussion elsewhere. Call a spade a spade. If we were really loving as the human race, all of our domestic problems would be solved simply because we couldn't stand to see our fellow man suffering, but what I generally see is a facade of superficial niceness covering over the true nature of the beast, which is to build a comfortable life for oneself regardless of the state of the world around you. The helping organizations aren't exactly overflowing with volunteers. My point is clear. As an individual, you don't owe anybody anything. You don't have to fake loving the people around you if you don't want to, but for the sake of peace, it's better to be cordial and pleasant just to avoid negativity. At the same time, if you've got any power in your soul that you were endowed with, you would be denying yourself of a worthy life if you didn't use your efforts to do whatever it is you feel you must, that may have the added consequence of helping humanity. So this is where my belief lies as far as the nobility of the individual is concerned. Do what you feel you must in your soul to help humanity and earn you your cash at the same time. You'll have more power this way to do something good with your life rather than living in your neck of the woods pretending to be a pro-social sap who likes all his neighbors and relatives even if you don't, which can be a draining affair, as it is for all the people living those phony lives of bland niceness pretending to be so nice, the people pleaser doormat complex popular among weak women, when they're really just self-centered gluttons, which is typical in a capitalist society hooked on the materialist ideology. It doesn't necessarily have to be gluttony for food, it's gluttony for the lifestyle of never having enough things, be they clothes, hair color, cars, CDs, more vacation trips, a bigger house, a swimming pool, more flowers in the garden, more shoes, etc. When we raise kids, it's often for the ulterior motives of conforming to social convention and to ease the loneliness we feel, not the pure unconditional love of the child. I may engage in compassionate acts of kindness from time to time, but only for helpless innocents or people trying to stay inspired in life that I feel need a break and would be thankful for my assistance, not the people who think the world owes them a living for one sorry-ass reason or another, where they portray themselves as victims blaming their problems on an oppressive society when it's really their laziness, people claiming to be damaged because of some events in their childhood, people claiming to have been through some trauma that has rendered them incompetent at life, or the generic bums who think that whoever has a better life than them owes them a living. It comes down to all of us as loners who get a few mild human connections with our friends and acquaintances here and there, but we all live with these private visions of utopia in our heads, and we want to find a soulmate who shares these visions so we can prance off into the sunset together, but it's very difficult to find someone who matches perfectly, and even if you find him or her, you'll often find that one soulmate isn't enough. You'll sometimes feel that you need a dozen or so in order to satisfy all the desires you feel floating around in your head, so that's where it stands. Each of us is alone, carrying our own crosses and pursuing our own private delusions of Eden, a world of our own creation in the comfort of our free minds, unhassled and unfettered by the world except for a few lusty soulmates and a few kindred spirit pals to catch a buzz with and have a laugh. It's like that quote from the Lebanese-American writer Khalil Gibran, "Stand together yet not too near together. For the pillars of the temple stand apart, and the oak tree and cypress grow not in each other's shadow." Standing too close to someone, being too dependent and intertwined with them, will take away from the ultimate free expression of your own life. So if you get too close to someone, you'll always be smothered and start to feel animosity if you don't get your free space and they get away from you for a while for their own sanity and peace of mind. Relationships come down to two things: the intuitive gut feeling sense I get about somebody when I meet them for the first time, which I always monitor whenever I'm with them, and the extent of equitable reciprocity between us. I've been with people I barely knew who I felt an instant kinship with, and have had years-long friendships disintegrate in a flash over a few trivial things, which led to the perception of disrespect which escalated, and suddenly it was all over. It's always equitable reciprocity regardless of your initial gut feelings. Treat me well and help me out in a situation, and I'll be empathetic enough to return the favor and show my appreciation by being a good friend, but don't crowd me with too many stupid personal questions and I'll leave you with lots of room to live in your free thoughts without trying to disrupt them, just like I don't want you disrupting my little fantasy world in my head. I don't owe anybody anything but the moment we're sharing time together, so I'll live in the moment and not go beyond it unless my compadre for that moment wants to reminisce about the past or talk about something else without getting in my face by probing my life too much. Reap what you sow. Where your deepest passion intersects with the world's greatest need is where you belong. Do you help people who have nothing, or do you live in a delusion that you do? The sign of the goodness of a society is how it treats its poor. Affluence brings with it boredom. Of itself, it offers little but the ability to consume, and a life centered on consumption will appear, and be, devoid of meaning. Robert Bork. What if all political parties were really one big party and we were all just voting for ourselves? Try to stay open-hearted despite your self-centered nature. Mind your own business. Don't concern yourself with gossip nor compare yourself to others as to how much of a winner you are next to them. I'm wise enough to know how territorial and self-interested the human beast is by nature, but anyway, here are my reasons as to why you and I should use our inspired energy to help humanity somehow. 1. Firstly, I need to earn money while doing something I enjoy doing, which is everybody's responsibility anyway, to pay their way, except that I love my life so much that I can't bear to waste it on the traditional methods to earn cash. This would kill my soul, which is why I'm so puritanical about living by my soul at the expense of everything else. 2. Secondly, I feel a primordial connection to the roots of the human race, such that I'll take my version of the human spirit to go in the direction I want as far as I can go. I owe my ancestors that much to continue carrying the torch they carried for eons of time before me to bring humanity to where it is today, going through infinitely more hardships than I could ever go through, so I'll make the effort to live by the spirit of life that courses through my veins to go forward somehow to advance our progress and evolution as the human race by trying to reach for my perception of the untapped frontier in my own way. 3. Thirdly, as a creature with some manner of ego, I'm just like any other fallible human being. I want to be recognized as a unique person for my work to further inspire me to get more highs out of life and give me the benefits any good capitalist would want for their efforts, to be rich and famous and get special treatment everywhere you go because people think you're cool, fascinating, and belong to the elite tribe of humanity by virtue of your position or achievements, your gold credit card, and that expensive car that you drive. Sure, I'm a hypocrite, but who isn't? 4. Fourthly, a life without purpose, which to me is a life without soul, is meaningless, which is why all the full-time partiers and hedonists eventually grow to loathe themselves, because they inherently know they're wasting the natural potential their God gave them to do something worthy with their lives for their own dignity and for the dignity of the human race. It's just like conscience or the morality between good and evil. We all inherently know that we were put on this earth to do something good and positive with our lives, and if we don't, it just adds to the disharmony we already feel by being gluttonous, lazy, self-indulgent couch potatoes who work our meaningless jobs to make money, then go home to be lowly consumers with no real meaning in our lives. If I felt no purpose from my soul that was worthy for me to do something useful with my life in the progress and evolution of the human race in some way I felt was right for me, I know that I would live in the black hole of emptiness that much of the population lives in, despite their seemingly respectable roles in society, which are imposters to what's really locked away in their souls. Even if you don't reach the dreams and fantasies in your soul, it's the effort that counts, like Theodore Roosevelt's great classic speech where he said the credit belongs to the one in the arena living it, not the poor huddled masses living mundane lives who know neither victory nor defeat. My pursuit of pleasure is a great part of my life, but it's still just an afterthought to my inspired soulful pursuits, which are my foundation. Without a positive sense of direction in which to use up my natural energy, I would be no different than any one-dimensional consumer out there. 5. Fifthly, what we do for others we do for ourselves. Charles Dickens, the great writer, lost his inspiration for writing and was running out of money when he took a walk through London one night and saw some kids being bullied by their boss in front of the factory where they worked. He befriended one of the kids there, went to visit her family, saw how they lived, then gave them money to help them even though he was in debt at the time. He said that the charitable act had a liberating effect on him. It was uplifting in the spiritual sense. It made him feel better than he had felt in a long time. It gave him his inspiration back. He immediately wrote A Christmas Carol in 6 weeks, which has endured until today as one of the greatest stories in all of literary history because it shows us the folly of our selfish ways and the illusions we live by. Overall, the lesson is that we are fundamentally inherently self-absorbed and self-centered. We are constantly stuck in our heads with our own preoccupations, our own delusions, our own views of the world, which not a bad thing in and of itself. In fact, it's natural, but when we can break away from this long enough to connect with others emotionally, altruistically, and simply by being a good friend, it frees us from our sense of existential loneliness for a moment and makes us feel good. In Dickens's case, in the process of getting out of his own skin long enough to relate to someone else and empathize with them, He saw life and the world from a different point of view than his own for a minute, which gave him a flash of insight about the haves and their relationship with the have-nots, which was the catalyst for the great novel about the wealthy, miserly Scrooge and his relationship with a family just barely getting by. The proverbial golden rule makes good sense in the pragmatic real world. You need all the allies and friends you can get in order to get what you want out of life in the real world, and simply to be at peace with people to avoid their hassles of getting in your face and bugging you if you screw with them or otherwise treat them badly. Doing unto others as you would have them do unto you is the unspoken code of civilized people anywhere. If you treat them with kindness and help, most will do the same for you. If you live and let live, most people will leave you alone to live your life freely. The other big one is don't take more than you need. Don't live in frivolous excess when you know half of the world is starving. If you have a heart, you'll know that what you're doing is wrong when you buy all those useless toys of capitalism or live in more excess and extravagance than you realistically need. In general, you reap what you sow in life, which is why you should practice random acts of kindness from time to time, because it breeds reciprocity. The way you are gets reflected back to you by the world. This is why the golden rule is a good thing to follow. When you're kind, people like you and treat you nicely. It's a better way to live than being neutral or mean simply because it makes life more pleasant and easier. Remember, everybody lives by emotion. If they like you, they'll treat you well. If they don't, they'll go out of their way to get you. There are some truly evil people who will disregard this and try to exploit whoever they can, or some busybodies who might try to embarrass you in the social sense, but by and large it makes good political and pragmatic sense to follow the golden rule. I saw an old movie, Bordertown, from 1937, where the old judge gives the young lawyer a speech before he kicks him out of the bar association for punching out the opposing lawyer in a court case. He says your worth to other people is the extent of your usefulness to them. It doesn't matter what you think about them in your private thoughts, it's the action that counts. As I already said, self-interest is the intent behind most behavior, but this is a good thing because most of us want friendship, recognition from society, money, success, status, fame, etc. So much that we play society's game with a passion, which means to live by the golden rule even if your motives aren't pure. Anybody who knows anything about the world of business knows that you get what you want by helping others get what they want. Help people live better lives somehow, be friendly and good-natured so that they give you money and accolades, consider you a good old boy and tell you how successful, cool, great and fascinating you are. That's the secret of a great business person. The cosmic law of karma doesn't work because the world is messed up and operates on concrete results, not good intentions, so be smart about what you do. Offer people something they can use to help them live better lives. Don't just smile and expect you'll get everything you want by the phony secret law of attraction. I believe that if you treat people well, they'll treat you well, and if you treat people poorly, you might get away with it for a while, but sooner or later you'll cross the wrong guy or gal and get your just due punishment, or at some point in time, if you need a hand, everybody will turn their backs on you because you weren't a good friend when they needed one. My version of the golden rule is not to go out of your way to sacrifice some of your comfort level to help others, because I believe that's very rare in the real world, except for a few true humanitarian religious types, because most people are simply too self-centered to live like this, even if they claim to be good Christian or Muslim people. My version of the golden rule is more pragmatic. If you want money and friends, help people live better lives for themselves. Just like you don't mess in your own backyard, you don't want stress with the people you have to be around day after day, so the expedient way to live in your neck of the woods is to live and let live, be superficially pleasant, engage people in social conversation from time to time to let them feel connected to you, and be a good friend by helping out if they need it. This way, you can ensure yourself peace and a helping hand should you ever need it. Serve your soul, serve your God. It is only when we have the courage to face things exactly as they are, without any self-deception or illusion, that a light will develop out of events, by which the path to success may be recognized. I Ching, Book of Changes. Hexagram 5, HSU nourishment. To know the sweetness of the infinite within us, that is the cause, the reason, the purpose, the only purpose of our being. Nicholas of CUSA, Christian mystic. You can't take it with you. Your spiritual worth will be how many people you touched and helped over a lifetime. Be the best specimen you can be by fulfilling the divine purpose you feel in your soul, and you will get to serve your God and the human race the best way you can, as George Bernard Shaw said in Man and Superman. This is the true meaning of life, to live for something recognized by ourselves as a mighty cause. To be a force of nature rather than a feverish little clod of grievances and ailments complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy. I want to be totally used up when I die. For the harder I work doing what I love, the more I live. Life is no brief candle to me. It's a sort of splendid torch, its own justification, and I want to make it burn as much as I can before handing it on to future generations. George Bernard Shaw. The more you follow your soul in all its facets means the more you love what you do, which makes you feel good, which is the key to happiness, which makes you strong, powerful, positive, and inspired. And the more you get like this, the more you want to share it, so the more loving and kind you get, and the more loving and kind you get, the more inspired and good you feel. So the morale to the story is do what you love to do from the bottom of your soul, honestly, intensely, purely, and persistently in your work, in your pleasure, your relationships with people, and if you're intelligent about it, you should eventually get most of what you want out of life. Happiness is the attitude with which you choose to travel. You can be happy anytime simply by willing it, pursuing your life with that attitude, and if you complement it with following the song in your soul, you win the game of life. Henry David Thoreau said, "What lies before us and what lies behind us are but small matters compared to what lies within us, and when we bring this out into the world, miracles happen." Hermann Hesse said, "I can give you nothing that has not already its origins within yourself. I can open no picture gallery but your own. I can help to make your own world visible. That is all. A bright life is to bring out what is important to you and struggle mightily against all the obstacles put before you to achieve this end. Everything else is just minor distraction or minor entertainment next to this. You don't let obstacles get you down. You use them as part of the journey to feel it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. All enlightened people live by this code. If you read the Bible, you will find that God put all kinds of obstacles in front of his people before he helped them out. Noah had to build his ark, Abraham thought he had to sacrifice his son, Moses was slow of tongue, the Jews fresh out of Egypt started cursing him, whereupon God made them wander in the desert for 40 years, and so on and so forth. The enlightened religious people know that when they talk to God, they're talking to that intuitive standard within that God created, their souls. There will be obstacles, but the strong people stick with the course regardless, and in due time, God will come through to be by your side when he sees you're worthy. Other godly people will come through to be by your side because they will see you as a righteous, worthy messenger for him, the Great One. The stronger your connection is to your soul, the more you're connected with the divine power of the universe, whatever it is, which means the more you're connected to your life force, which you can use to better your life and do whatever you want. But this is the hook: you can't be a powerful, benevolent, all-loving being without first tapping into that strength inside. That's the divine part of you, which I call the soul, which is all that matters, to live by it because it's the real you and it's all you own, despite what delusions you might live under about your so-called power, fame, and wealth in the world. The soul is always good, and when you honor it, you're always right and can only get stronger and better in whatever it is you want to do with your life. Share this power in your soul with whatever you perceive out there as worthwhile, and you're fulfilling the contract your God implicitly made with you when he created you, regardless of who you believe the supreme creator to be. This is the universal law of life. Tap into the power of your soul to live life in all its facets, in all its gloried splendor. Your only rule is that you mustn't interfere negatively with anyone else's life. Many people say they feel lonely or alienated from the greater core of society, which I can't feel, because by following what I feel within, I'm connected with the highest order of humanity, and at the same time, with any divine force I may have come from, since we all share the same divine spark that created us. This essence that resides in each of us is the highest order of the universe, so if you live by soul, you're living by this essence, which means you're in harmony with the God force or whatever you want to call it, which is why I never feel alone no matter what, because I live to honor what's good and natural within me, which is my base, which is to live in harmony with the divine power and the highest order of life that should live in every human being passionately, that essence which is the inspired soul. If you find God in your soul, that's good, follow that path. If you find only you, that's good too, because you're being you the way you were born. In any case, the solution to life is not to necessarily follow the stuff out there. It's to look inside yourself for your answers. If God created us, He gave us all the power to proceed by following His nature as we feel it. If not, then all we got is ourselves, and the most powerful thing we own is that intuitive base that is our soul, so it's always all about soul. When you live by soul, no imposters or illusions can change who you are inside. It's all or nothing. There should be no middle ground of comfort and mundanity where you feel you're doing all right. You're either in the game of your life striving for the limits of your soul, or living a mundane, uninspired life in the material world, chewing your cud comfortably, so to speak, letting yourself be led by the box. Opening the soul up full hilt is freedom. Opening the good in your soul to share with the world is a positive use of this freedom, and will always bring you happiness in the long run regardless of apparent consequences, because you're following your true nature, which is always right, which gives you the feeling within that you're true to yourself, which is the best you can ever do. Follow what you believe in and not what others might have you believe in. The moment you feel useless is the moment you die a spiritual death. Talk to older people or lost souls without a definite purpose and see how mundane they are. Talk to pop culture clones and you'll see how they're grasping at the latest gimmicks to give themselves something to hold onto and think is real. If you don't wake up in the morning inspired about something from within your soul, life has no real meaning and you'll lose yourself very quickly. You're like a mustard seed, born with a genetic code of immense potential. If you release it honestly and productively, you sprout to grow big and strong. If not, it stays inside of you unused and destroys you through depression and frustration for not being who you really want to be within yourself. Follow your own reality honestly and intensely, and you will have walked with the small minority of mavericks throughout history, forging their own paths, being worthy human beings in their own way regardless of the world around them. I'm not necessarily a benevolent loving soul, in fact, I'm quite self-absorbed and carnal, but wise enough to know that by tapping into that source of power within me to do something useful to earn my keep, I'm expending that natural energy inside of me in a positive way, and this is the best you can do with yourself for humanity. Through this process, I tap into my highest source of energy, which keeps me happy, calm, inspired and powerful most of the time. This is about as divine as I can get through what I feel inside in my soul. I gave up conventional religion when I saw it more as a fairy tale and tool of control than anything real. I only know what I feel inside, which is to honor whatever divine inspiration some higher deity may have endowed me with as a masterpiece of his or her handiwork, which is the best I can do and the best way I can think about my life, to feel that by being who I am in all my splendor, power, and sensuality, I'm honoring him that created me, if anyone, because I'm being everything he made me to be. A lot of people pursue everything the systems defines as good and what they should go for without questioning any of it. They follow all these things like career, money, love, family, material goods, comfort, fame, status, and other false gods by rote. Very few of us know our souls or stay true to them no matter what. Ego, pride, and fame. I'm nobody. Who are you? I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us, don't tell. They'd banish us, you know. How dreary to be somebody. How public like a frog. To tell your name the livelong day. To an admiring bog. Emily Dickinson. We live in a world where everybody who is nobody wants to be famous when true character is quietly making the world a better place. Enlightened journalist. One who desires the attention of others has not yet found himself. Rav Shlomo Wolbe, Rabbi. The greatest goal in life is not the attainment of fame. The principal thing in this world is to keep one's soul aloft. Gustave Flaubert. So this was fame at last. Nothing but a vast debt to be paid to the world in energy, blood, and time. May Sarton, M.R.S. Stevens hears the mermaid singing, 1965. For those who make themselves great will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be made great. Luke 14:11. I am sick of society. I need solitude, isolation. My feelings are dried up and I am bored with public display. I am tired of glory at 29, it has lost its charm, and there is nothing left for me but complete egotism. Napoleon, Letter to Joseph Bonaparte, July 1798. Fame is a pearl many dive for and only a few bring up. Even when they do, it is not perfect and they sigh for more and lose better things in struggling for them. Louisa May Alcott, Joe's Boys, 1886. There's only one way to be humble, don't think about yourself and serve others. The quality of a really virtuous person is to be unknown to people or to be misunderstood by people but not to be disappointed by all this. Chinese Enlightenment. A celebrity is someone who is known by many people he doesn't particularly want to know. Being famous is like rape. Former celebrity. Everybody loves you but nobody knows you. If you become famous, you don't change, everyone else does. Fame is an attempt to get a lot of people to love you and think you're fantastic. To me, a desire for fame means human weakness because you're looking outside of yourself to get something to fill you up. It shows you're not happy and stable within yourself in your soul without the need for others to look at you and say how great you are. To me, the thing about fame is so what? You are who you are, that's it. If you're affected by people giving you compliments, it means you're affected when they badmouth you, which means you're weak because you give a damn about what others say about you. Admiration is fleeting. I've been complimented highly one day by a boss, then several days later chewed out. Through these types of experiences, I learned that nothing anyone ever says to me in the way of a compliment or criticism will ever faze me again either way. I know that just about everybody spends most of their time thinking about themselves, not about other people. Even the flakiest pop culture fan has to think about himself to manage his own life at the very least. For most people, they're thinking about themselves and everybody else is a minor player in their lives. Even spouses and children are minor players to a lot of people. Guys are hooked on making money, then after that they want to relax and do whatever their recreation is. The wife and kids are a sideshow. This is one reason I see fame as a bust. The other big reason I see fame as a bust is that I wake up every day to try to go for a long run. Nobody can help me do it, not all the fame in the world, and I don't want anyone bugging me while I run like if I was famous and people were hassling for an autograph while I'm jogging. My life is my relationship with myself to earn my own self-respect and honor what's in my soul. Beyond that I don't care. I know that fame would do nothing for my internal state of being. Fame is all these people scrambling over you, trying to get your attention or a piece of you in some way, and if you're weak, you'll like the attention because it will temporarily fill up what's missing in your soul, a strong, comfortable sense of self with or without people around scrambling over you or ignoring you. The thing is that everybody ages and loses their so-called lustrous charm, so today's teen idol will be a dud tomorrow. Take a look at some of them. The business of the media is to create new stories, so they are constantly finding new flavors of the month and tossing the old ones away after their 15 minutes of fame. Enlightened people don't need approval or compliments from others. If you're connected to your soul and people are scrambling all over you, trying to get a piece of you, you look at them all and think to yourself, what a bunch of flaky lost souls. Get a life. Nothing's changed, I'm still who I am, me. I don't need your transient admiration to feel good about my life. If you're an empty lost soul, you will eat it up, think it's great and try to get some special feelings this way, but when the crowd leaves and it's just you, you will find that you're exactly the same, you still have to live with yourself. You're either conscious about keeping yourself inspired or just another lost soul on the runway of transient fame. The quest for fame is to prove to everyone that you're special. The more you want it, the more vain and self-centered you are, and the more dependent you are on things outside of yourself for your happiness and sense of well-being, which is why it always fails, because you're depending on others to get the approval that should live inside of you. What happens when your fame goes away, or you realize you're in a fishbowl stuck with it, like the infamous M.J.? A celebrity is someone known for being known. His or her name is often worth more than what he actually does. A former pop star who I saw on the Surreal Life show said the fame will go to your head. You will start believing your own press until the public gets tired of you and moves on to the next emerging star. He said real life is day by day with the people around you. Everything else is glittery illusion. To be marginally healthy, fame should be a byproduct of a job well done. To be fully healthy is not to desire fame, because it does absolutely nothing for your soul unless you can use it to help people somehow by showcasing some particular problems in the world. Of course, I'm being a bit of a hypocrite here, because I think everybody has some ego and wants to be seen as a cool, happening person, but for me, in order to like a certain amount of fame, it would have to meet two conditions. 1. That I'm famous for something I'm proud of that I did through my own efforts. 2. It doesn't interfere with my day-to-day life, basically, that people don't get in my face and ask for autographs or waste my time because they want to talk to a celebrity. I already discussed ego and basically defined it as all the pretense you give off to the world in your concern with your so-called image, namely how cool and successful you want others to think you are. Ego is useless to an enlightened person because his or her worth is within themselves. The only thing that really matters to an enlightened entity is self-acceptance and self-mastery. If you can reach a state of life where you're totally egoless about trying to create an image about yourself and egoless to what anyone around you says or does to you, you've won the game. I don't mean to be inconsiderate and callous to people, I just mean be yourself, be humble and courteous, and have a quiet self-assurance within yourself. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. Just live a life true to yourself. That's all that really matters. Yet why do so many people line up in their efforts to be frivolously famous when the world is crazy and we have many millions of kids starving right now? The capitalist mass media glamour entertainment pop culture business machine of life in the modern era encourages a star attitude, not a star attitude of you being a good person in and of yourself, trying to do something tough, challenging and incredible simply because you exist and feel the need to push yourself to your limits in some endeavor, but a star attitude of you standing on a red carpeted pedestal somewhere more advanced, beautiful, and special than the mere mortals you're surrounded by. Looking all cute, advanced, and fantastic, full of yourself, while all the plebeies are all looking at you, marveling at your specialness, worshipping you, envying you. Isn't that special? But nobody tells you that you're stuck in your head by yourself for 98% of the day, and if you ain't got that feeling of comfort within yourself away from all the glitter of the world, you're still a lost soul regardless of anything else you might do. This is the delusion that has every second guy wanting to be a sports star or rock star, and every second girl wanting to be a model and a movie star for some frivolous reason, rather than just trying to be a good person living her life purely, as if those Hollywood moments really do something for your insides, hanging around all them phony cutthroats who secretly think they're more fantastic and special than you. After all, that's what they're all there for, to get more popular and famous than the next guy. It seems kinda callous to be romping around acting cool, fashionable, chic and suave when there is so much need in the world. On any given night on any talk show, you can watch the endless supply of so-called celebrities trying to act cool, frivolous and funny, which is not who they really are underneath all the glitter. Just about all of them have showbiz fronts because they must be insecure as hell, since the entertainment industry is so competitive and brutal on just about everyone, plus the fact that every actor makes it on luck, barring writing his or her own product or producing their own movies. In the entertainment arts, very few people are not expendable. Even the top stars worry about their public images fading and the movie producers not sending them scripts anymore. You don't control your own life. Somebody else always makes the final decision as to whether you get the part or not. Beyond that, you're trying for a part, job, a gig, somebody else's brainchild. It's not like you're doing your own thing. Somebody said being famous is like living in Disneyland where everybody is smiling at you and giving you breaks, but the flip side is people getting in your face bothering you for trivial autographs and pictures, and it could be even worse because they know you got money, so they might try to get some out of you. Samuel Johnson once said that fame is the vain desire to fill the minds of others with yourself. It reminds me of some dictator like Mussolini or Hitler, both small-statured men who had to overcompensate for their feelings of inferiority by getting people to bow down to them, all under force, of course. One guy said it was a curse because he has to be on everywhere he goes. Everybody's so-called star fades as they age, then they have to deal with the crash when they realize they're no longer flavor of the month, that People magazine doesn't print pictures of them anymore cause there are fresher, new flavors of the month ready, willing, and able to exploit themselves for their 2 minutes of fame, and it never ends. Who cares anyway, except for the powerless people with loser lives who need to fill them up with something that gives them a semblance of control and or a sense of being a part of something. There are plenty of casualties who turn to drugs or whatever to deal with their has-been status once it's over. Never forget the lesson of the biggest one of all, Elvis. He had all the fame and money that anybody could want, but he was troubled, drug-addicted, smelly, sweaty and fat. Some people even say he committed suicide because he couldn't deal with the wimp he'd become compared to the popular, hip-swinging buck of his youth, which goes back to my classic lesson, connection to the soul vs. loss of self. He lost himself so much that he saw the mountain ahead to get it back and simply gave up. It's always a battle for the inner standard of the soul, whether you've got control of yourself or not. The smart ones are conscious about it. The dumb people don't realize that this is the game of life. They feel these internal feelings of emptiness but don't understand why. People don't give a damn about you unless you're helping them in some way, and even then it's fleeting. They got their own lives and their own problems to worry about without thinking about you, the alleged cool famous celebrity. Why should we want recognition for our achievements when all that really matters is the money we get paid and the intrinsic joy we get from a job well done? The truth is that rarely does someone truly recognize another for their achievements, and even if they do, so what? It's likely that they're a lost soul. I respect someone like an Albert Einstein or a Nikola Tesla, but it doesn't mean I worship them as special celebrities. All enlightened people know that in private, everyone has the same primal, undignified manner. They go to the bathroom, think sexy and violent thoughts, don't like people some of the time, feel selfish at times, are gluttons at times, feel weak at times, etc. Nobody on the planet is a celebrity to my way of thinking, nor does anyone live a lifestyle more qualitatively advanced than me. It's all media pop culture delusion ultimately geared to sell product. Most compliments out there are merely patronage, a cheap ploy to butter the egos of others that work because people in general are so insecure that they love to get their egos stroked so much. The morale is to accept the fact that people spend more time thinking about themselves rather than thinking about you, regardless of whether you're famous or not, so get on with your life. If you get famous, you might get a few groupies or sign a few autographs out in public, but anyone who's that empty that they have to be a groupie to fill their dull lives up isn't much of a human being to start out with. So what's the big deal with the compliment unless you can get sex or money from them? There was a funny one I saw that demonstrates my point about the groupie bit. There was a guy who was a pop star in the 1980s with his groupies, youthful looks, popularity, and all the glitter. A few years ago, he was putting on a show at a small venue in the area I live, so I went to see him, to see this paunchy, middle-aged guy, and to look at him. You'd never believe he once had girls screaming for him, and the media built him up to be a cool, playboy type at the time. True fulfillment is someone totally self-assured within themselves without the need for compliments from strangers. Fame would be nice here and there to me if I wanted to impress some chick, but beyond that, I don't want people getting in my face when I'm out there trying to do my own thing. I like to live in my own space and not have to bother with flakes asking for autographs or taking pictures, nor would I want people to recognize me if I head to the seedy part of town looking for some kind of seedy action. iwannabefamous.com. Life is not fair. Nobody cares about your pain or wants to hear about it. If you look at human history from the beginning, you will see that most of the time, most of the people were in bondage to someone else. I've read a chronological world history anthology and one of the several books around describing the history of torture, The History of Torture, Daniel Mannix, and concluded that life for many is all about trying to get power over others somehow, which is all negative. It's about wars and conquest of other people. Despite the democratization of the world in the 20th century, nobody's born with a free pass to live a fair, equitable life. Many people are trivial, negative, and miserable and like nothing better than to screw other people around to bring themselves up a notch. This particularly applies to people in positions of authority over you like your boss, your parents, your teachers, or cops. Many things just end up wrong, like you trust someone and they let you down, or you send something through the mail and it gets lost, and then there are forces beyond your control, commonly called acts of God, accidents, or whatever, that throw you around for a loop. The bottom line is that your head is all you got, and if you let anything or anybody other than you rent space in it, you're screwing yourself. So take all the pain, anger, envy, bitterness, disappointments, hate, self-pity, thoughts of revenge, etc. Say goodbye to them, flush them down the toilet forevermore, and keep moving on with an inspired sensual lifestyle. It's the only way to deal with it. You can be bitter because somebody screwed you over, or you're the better man for the job but didn't get the break, but all you're doing is destroying yourself. You have to live your own life by your own standard and let all the crap fly off your back. Let everything roll away. Just like you might sometimes think that you got the crappy end of the stick in life, I, too, have felt it, but knew crying wouldn't do me any good, so I forget it and moved on. Once you go through so many letdowns, after a while they're meaningless. They don't register anymore. We got no hardships compared to just about everybody in past history and most of the world population today who are living below the poverty level. Many people are their own worst enemies, shooting themselves in the foot, sabotaging themselves either consciously or subconsciously by either feeling sorry for themselves, blaming others for their misfortunes, trying to build up their wounded egos, or just being selfishly pathetic. Don't build a case against yourself. Get off it, keep going and be happy. No matter what happens to you, take it all in stride and let it blow off your back, no matter what, even death. Dying's a part of living. When loved ones die, mourn, pay your respects, then determine that you will become the best person you can be to honor their memories. I know that a large part of the world is miserable, sad, and feeling slightly empty about something because I see the preachers on TV preaching about it all the time. Sadness is a state of mind. Inspired action can heal it if you give it all you got. Don't let negative people get you down. Just get away from them forever. You might feel that certain people are out to get you because they're miserable jerks who don't like to see other people trying too hard or a bit too happy. Get away from them and keep going on with your life. That's the only solution. Forget it all and keep going. Life's too short to be miserable for long. The dark night of the soul. The dark night of the soul happens when you're scared and feel hopeless. I'm all about living by your true nature, and that's it, but sometimes it's not enough. The strongest people ever in the human race still have times of uncertainty where they ask themselves if the voice in their souls is good and right. I watched my mother lose her short-term memory. It scared me because it is the tragedy of life to watch loved ones slip away due to aging. I get this empty, tragic feeling of sadness. I couldn't sleep for several nights because I was mourning the loss of a loved one. I was thinking about me as an old man. I already lost some of my physical power. I don't want to end up alone with nobody there with me, just some old man filling time without great inspiration. I don't want to be some meaningless guy going to the supermarket as the highlight of my day. Ultimately, worrying is useless because life is lived one day at a time, so I have those dark nights, then I continue on and say I still got a good life. Keep releasing the power in my spirit. It's all I got, then I die. That's it. It's like that scene at the end of the old movie with Henry Fonda, Grapes of Wrath. Keep pushing. That's the human race. We will go on. Chapter 4. Primal divine beings are us. Good, evil, and brainwash equals big mess. What other people think about me is none of my business. Freedom is total reality without blinders on. Every person comes from the intimate depths of the divine creator and from the great unwashed wilderness that lies in the pit of hell. Rasputin, Crazy Russian. Whereas formal education, conventional self-help, government forces, and most religions try to focus on the development of your good, pro-social, conformist side and repress or negate your primal side, it's who we are as human beings. All the way back to Greek mythology and beyond, I constantly see references to the dual nature of man. We can't get away from it, it's our true nature as human beings, a bit of wild animal, a bit of divine inspiration, Cain and Abel. That's why I'm so sure that the only way to save ourselves is to use genetic engineering to make us less evil and violent, better morally and kinder than we are now. I've seen so much man's inhumanity to man that I'm positive we cannot go any further as a species until we re-engineer ourselves. It's not necessarily the opposing forces of good and evil. Most people aren't really evil or at least don't act out their evil thoughts in real life. It's more like selfishness versus benevolence. You can be selfish without being evil. In fact, most people in a capitalist world are, if we're to judge them by their neighbors in the ghetto who need their help but they don't want to give it even though the pain and need there is quite obvious. We all like to think we're nice, kind, generous, selfless people, but I tend to think that as individuals and as society as a whole, objectively, we're not as kind and good as we think we are. It's a great self-delusion. Due to our self-preservation nature and the nature of the capitalist world we live in, which encourages us to get all the stuff we can for ourselves and call it success, we're automatically hooked on selfishness and vanity, to try to appear cool and attractive to others, the pursuit of innocuous pleasure and comfort for ourselves, like bowling, ice cream, video games, new clothes, amusement parks, movies, etc., and get mad, sad, angry, violent thoughts if anyone interferes with our efforts to get what we want for ourselves right now. But most of the time, we don't openly act on our negative thoughts, not necessarily because we sincerely love our fellow man but because we don't want to seem antisocial and or go to jail. Capitalist ideology is all about you going for your dreams no matter what, and if anyone interferes or competes with you then you have to crush them any way you can in order to stay on top of the pile. This is the American dream: try to be superior to everyone else in some capacity to earn you your cash, and if it means crushing opposing forces, so be it. Never mind the old Buddhist statement, be the best you can be but don't try to be better than others. With the American way, you're brought up to be a competitor intent on superiority if you're to become a winner in modern day society, but don't forget to carry your pleasant, phony, pro-social mask around and put it on whenever it might benefit your cause, you. I believe that the infrastructure of a capitalist system shapes people to be self-centered, competitive, materialistic, and callous to the plight of others whilst they delude themselves into thinking they're good, nice, successful, happen people because they're following a lifestyle that's drilled into them on TV every night at the very least, not to mention all the forces that strive to create capitalist conformists like school, business, government, and TV advertising for starters. We're taught to compete at everything, and if we don't win, we're supposed to get mad, consider it a shortcoming on our part and try harder next time to win rather than just enjoying the experience for what it is with no ulterior motives about winning or losing. I believe that if we were brought up to be more cooperative than competitive, we would have a much better society overall. Our true natures may be more cooperative if I'm to remember my early youth when I tried to be friendly, do my own thing in peace and live in ease among my friends at school, but I was always being manipulated to try to be the best in the class at something so I could win a toy model, get the highest mark on a test, be the best jock in the bunch, the best trumpet player to get some ribbon or something, and be temporarily put on a phony pedestal to think I was superior. There are cultures out there unspoiled by mass media and materialism who are genuinely warm and sharing, but when you bring mass media funded by corporate forces into the equation, all these people, who had at one time never known they were living simple lives in what would be classified as poverty, all of a sudden see all these wealthy people living extravagant lives as a matter of course on TV, having a routine, fun, old frivolous time breezing through life with all kinds of consumer goods, so all of a sudden, they feel deficient, like they're missing out on something, and get envious, which is the foundation of much of our crime, the have-nots jealous of the so-called haves, unleashing their anger at them. Corporate forces through advertising specialize in getting people hooked on becoming good worker clones who will spend their lives trying to reach this illusory standard of materialism, success, coolness, and glamour they see on the tube every night. They will get competitive, self-centered, and materialistic, and this is the formula for success in a capitalist world. If you buy into pop culture, you're trying to be this cool, frivolous person on the cutting edge of the latest cutesy trends manufactured on MTV, ETV, fashion TV, and cosmetics commercials. Just look at how many women color their hair, which has absolutely nothing to do with who you are in your soul, yet the cosmetics corporations have brainwashed millions of women into doing it because, as they say, you're worth it, which implies it will make you feel glamorous, special, and elite. It will supposedly enhance your life, but all it really does is make you look like a stupid, lost soul, brainwashed sheeple with those tawdry roots showing through. It's tacky and fake, not glamorous and real. If you buy into materialism, it becomes a keeping up and passing the Joneses mindset. You work your butt off to try to achieve a lifestyle that's held out as successful on the boob tube all the time. The world is a cesspool of contradictory and hypocritical people, messages, ideals, and organizations. If you follow any of them and let them disrupt the sanctity in your soul, you're not free. You're another brainwashed clone. This is my take of what's really going on in the lives of most people in a capitalist world. Some people try to brand me a cynic, but I say I'm so positive for my own life that I will not let anything out there influence me, not the pop culture illusions of a cool, glamorous place somewhere, not the talking heads who want me to care about the so-called issues they talk about, not the political wanks wanting me to salute the flag in the name of God and country, nor the overpaid professional athletes pretending they give a damn about the team they play for when it's really all about the money. All this is going on while most of the people in the world are barely getting by with the basics of food, shelter, and medical care, and everybody's trying to sign me up for one illusion or another. What a big mess. I will die pure with my soul intact, not indoctrinated by any of it. That's what an enlightened free spirit is. Even though it's cool to think of oneself as enlightened and free, how many people are really free enough to take their lives for a good, intense ride of experience and inspiration today for what they want to do, then do it all over again tomorrow? For enlightened minds, they are who they are. Nothing can change that. Even though I know my identity, I'm still wise enough to feed my soul the spiritual and sensual inspiration it needs all the time in order to help me stay pure and true. But most people, who don't really know their own identities, allow themselves to absorb what's going on out there, mostly from the media, their friends, peers, colleagues, etc. Average people without strong minds become what they surround themselves with. This is why we have a society of pop culture clones all wanting to be celebrities, or at least look like one, with a bunch of macho clowns running around thinking a kick-butt, punk-ass, sarcastic attitude is cool because they saw it on a sitcom and an action movie about 10,000 times, and then you gotta a bunch of chicks all trying to be a combination of nice, phony, sweet Miss America and some manufactured vamp in a music video. So I sit back, watch it all, know how brainwashed the world is that I live in, and consciously focus on keeping some distance between me and all that agenda out there. We are primal divine beings. This thing of darkness I acknowledge mine. Shakespeare, The Tempest. Away with every concern that is not altogether my concern. You think that at least the good cause must be my concern? What's good, what's bad? Why, I myself am my concern, and I am neither good nor bad. Neither has meaning for me. The divine is God's concern, the human, man's. My concern is neither the divine nor the human, not the true, good, just, free, etc. But as unique as I am. Nothing is more to me than myself. Max Stirner, 1845, The Ego and Its Own, The Case of the Individual Against Authority. To be pure and divine, which is very difficult in the real world, reject everything you've ever been brought up to believe in. Open yourself up to the forces of the universe to live freely for experience until you discover the essence that lives inside of you. Once you've found the inspired psychedelic sensual forces within, you have your inner standard. Honor it by riding it hard and intense most of the time. Then when you feel yourself getting tired, distracted, confused and cynical, back off, enter the harbor for your soul, rest, relax, get your focus back and do it all over again. In one way, we're high-order noble beings trying to do worthy things to get closer to our gods, transcend our limits and free ourselves from the mundanity of the human condition by trying to go higher, faster, further, seek out wisdom to be better at whatever it is we do in order to live glorious lives for ourselves and strive to make life better for the collective group of humanity. Some of us genuinely want to share our lives with one another to feel connected and help the human race progress to a higher level of being. Some of us are selfish bitches and bastards who have not 1 ounce of compassion within ourselves for others nor want to do anything from within ourselves to help the human race somehow. In our true souls, we're primal divine beings. It's always a mix. I want to explore the full spectrum of the human experience, so I exercise both, doing noble, worthy things to add to the progress of humanity as through the expression of my thoughts on paper, which I believe are original enough to constitute something worthy that can inspire and help some people live better lives. Then I have my proverbial dark side of lust, lusciousness, hedonism, and bohemianism, which is what capitalism is based on anyway, but my version is a bit different. I do whatever it is I do as a sensuous psychedelic exploration of my life to complement my spiritual inspired mystical pursuit of it. I don't care much about materialism beyond the basics of comfort, and I don't care about my status in the world, what other people might think of me or how many medals I have on my wall, so it's okay for me to do whatever it is I do for my own pleasure as long as I don't hurt other people in the process or otherwise interfere with the free pursuit of their lives. I live and let live. I don't bother people who don't want to be bothered, and I don't want people bothering me or trying to impose their lifestyles on me because they think I'm deficient or a lost soul because I don't aspire to the same things they do. From a young age, we're taught only one model of success: to achieve, compete, win, and go for the brass ring, as opposed to cooperate, be friends with the people around you, and strive to enjoy your life by discovering who you are, taking your natural sense of inspired energy and pursuit of sensual pleasures as far as you can go in trying to live out a great ride of experience. I was taught to achieve capitalist success and get all the thrills possible that money can buy, and this is how I lived for the first part of my adult life until I realized it wasn't me. It didn't make me happy, it just made me feel like I was wasting my life on somebody else's agenda that was thrust on me, and I was the sucker who fell for it. I was raised as a good little Catholic boy. Then the older I got, the more I found myself surrounded by materialism, the cult of capitalist success/status and pop culture. It all ended when I realized all the stuff I was doing wasn't making me happy, so I cut out to live totally free, answering to nothing or nobody, and over several months of total freedom, I discovered this intuitive standard within me, separate from everything on the planet, about how I should live my life. I went through the same process the character Stephen Date-Elus in James Joyce's novel Portrait of the Artist as a young man went through. I will not serve in that which I no longer believe, whether it call itself my home, my fatherland, or my church, and I will try to express myself in some mode of life or art as freely as I can and as wholly as I can. Through a mixed process of introspection and experiences in the world during his formative adult years, he eventually freed himself from all of the indoctrinating influences of his upbringing to focus only on what he felt within himself, and set out on a course to create what he believed had value as either truth, beauty, or perfection, then released it out into the ether of humanity to let it go wherever it may. This is what James Joyce did when he escaped his homeland of Ireland to go to Trieste in Italy to live as freely as he could with his free-spirited hometown lass, Nora. Then they had a baby and a volatile relationship which Joyce used to feed his inspiration for writing. He was a pretty whacked out, temperamental, crazy man for his day, not unlike his Welsh compatriot Dylan Thomas or American writer F. Scott Fitzgerald, who drank himself to an early death. Robert Louis Stevenson, Paul Gauguin, D. H. Lawrence and a few others did basically the same things, escaping to exotic locations to try to live as freely as they could. This is my perception of the enlightened free spirit's life. Do whatever it is you do because it's you. You have to earn a living out in the world. If you can help, inspire, or entertain people through what you do being yourself, then you've served your purpose doing what your Creator, God, wanted you to do to qualify as a worthy human being by honoring whatever it was that He placed into your soul when He created you. When you consider the spiritual harmony of the world the way it should be, which is everybody contributing their talents and wealth to help one another out with no one taking more than they need, it doesn't seem right that some should live in luxury to the point of absurdity, as with owning 200+ pair of shoes or over 90 motorcycles, while others can barely scrape a piece of bread and a cup of milk together for a meal. Is the human race living in harmony with itself? I don't think so, but this is way too profound a problem for me to brood over. My essence/soul will guide me through my little life as to what's right for me without getting taken in by the world agenda too much. My purpose as I see it is to stand on the fringes, watch the process of life go on around me, construct my ideas of what knowledge, education, and wisdom are, then release them out into the ether of humanity to let them go wherever they may, the lone artist living by his own truth, who doesn't give a damn about the truths the world throws at me, because I know my truth is superior to all of them put together, because a bunch of half-truths and deceptive propaganda has no common, unifying thread going through it, so it's all meaningless, like grasping at straws for a lifeline. There are a few forces out there trying for inspiration like the preachers of the world, but none of them clearly understand that it's simply about this intuitive standard inside of us, which is God talking to us, and the realization that we must honor it all the time in order to stay inspired forever. They deny their hedonistic sides, which I can't do as the prurient being I was born to be. Arrogance and the artist. A truly original creative human being has to have this kind of belief and seeming arrogance about himself. If you want to be totally true to yourself, you can't let the world pollute you in any way at all. I was born alone with my own thoughts, stuck in my head. I will die alone with my own thoughts stuck in my head. The concept of existential loneliness doesn't bother me as much as it bothers the average person who desperately seeks out connections with others in order to try to fill some inner emptiness he or she feels, but I'm okay with myself. I've made my peace with my life. As long as I feel close to that standard/spark/essence inside of me, I'm fine. Every individual and every organization, institution, corporation, religion, and government are walking around with their own little delusions about how righteous, special, great, honest and good they are, trying to shove it down my throat, so I don't believe in any of them. As a guy who has come to believe the only true power is the power of self-education and self-reliance, I can't think of anything I would rather do to earn a living than help people free themselves from their dependency on the system to live their own lives as free, strong, independent beings who don't bow down to all the indoctrinating crap out there. My message is clear. Get control of this essence first, the foundation in your soul, then spread your wings out into the world if you want, not the other way around, aligning yourself with things you see out there in the mistaken belief that they will give you acceptance, success, money, wealth, fulfillment, and love. I went to college and followed all that American dream stuff in order to pick a career and try to reach a level of success prescribed for me by the systematic way of doing things. I'm not necessarily saying this is wrong. This was my path to my enlightenment, to go through the system, realize it didn't fit for me, then create my own life from there. The point is to create your own life. Don't just pick from the several hundred occupational paths the system defines for you and go along with it as the righteous key to a full life. If you live like this, it just shows you're a generic conformist with no individual spark, and you will never feel truly fulfilled, like you're charting your own course and living out your own destiny. The world doesn't care either way. Everybody gets thrown on the trash heap of humanity by the mainstream society as they age. When you die, the planet won't skip a beat. It won't miss you. When you get near death, no one will be able to experience it but you alone, which is why I say get to know who you are before you do anything else. Firstly, in order to live a righteous, harmonious life for yourself, and secondly, when you go to meet your Maker at the end of this journey with this body, he will look down and smile, knowing you were one of the few in the bunch who tried to understand the soul he gave you rather than just one of the huddled masses who went along with the generic crowd, focused on satiating your lower level needs of comfort, ego, and security, and didn't go any further in the exploration of this gift of life beyond that. Midway between the gods and the beasts. I connect with other souls here and there to fulfill my social intimate desires, but overall, on a day-to-day level, the game is my primal divine spark and my effort to either 1. Honor it to stay vital and feel good. 2. Let myself go along with the messages constantly bombarded at me by the media and the other indoctrinating forces of society to become just another one-dimensional worker consumer clone hooked on pop culture entertainment and so-called traditional values and call it success. 3. Or get lazy and go fully over to the couch potato frivolous consumer, decadent, carnal hedonistic, pop culture, trendy side to wither away whilst blindly pursuing sensuous delights and being cool, working on my image to others, without any regard for my noble, inspired side. The lifestyle of an enlightened free spirit is always a conscious act poised midway between the two limits of the primal divine divide, trying to reach for the transcendence of heaven through intense, inspired soulful pursuits and other tough worthy ventures, all the while enjoying the carnal sensual pleasures, namely food, sex, love, romance, intoxicating highs, good wine, and the other euphoric sensations of life. It's no different from what the Greek philosopher Plotinus said about 2,500 years ago, that man is poised midway between the gods and the beasts. The soul is more sensual than rational, more like poetic madness, a divine comedy rather than an orderly plan and a structured lifestyle, as all the conventional forces of psychobabble would have you follow if they had their way, so that they can make money while filling you up with stupid ideas that give them control over you and make you a little one-dimensional clone thinking you're a righteous citizen of the system. But the truth is that you're not strong enough to reject them all and listen to yourself only. The forces of the world try to channel us into becoming rational and orderly beings, but at our very cores, our essences as human beings, we're a hot, passionate mixture of emotions, whims, and desires which are always fluctuating amidst the intuitive flow of our lives. This is your soul, the true nature of the human beast. The reason to live by the primal divine spark according to modern-day psychotherapy, namely the 1999 book Shadow Dance, Liberating the Power and Creativity of Your Dark Side, Shambhala. By David Richo, is as follows. The shadow presents a challenge to us, to negotiate an alliance among all the opposing forces in ourselves. Every honest man has a dishonest side, every faithful woman has a faithless side. The courageous honesty required to look for such contradictions in ourselves creates character. Befriending both sides of ourselves allows our polarized tensions to emerge into consciousness. Then we begin to locate their creative possibilities. In this sense, the shadow is a gift. Without it, our ego might identify only with its light side and maintain an inflated view of itself, thus obscuring a dark glory that wants so much to peep out. In Moby Dick, Herman Melville described the duality of the primal divine spark in the following metaphor. Consider them both, the sea and the land, and do you not find a strange analogy to something in yourself? For as this appalling ocean surrounds the verdant land, so in the soul of man there lies one insular Tahiti, full of peace and joy, but encompassed by all the horrors of the half-known life. Douglas Gillette, in The Shaman's Secret, the Lost Resurrection Teachings of the Ancient Maya, made the following statement. In a culture of savage splendor, of exotic gods and goddesses both benevolent and bloodthirsty, the shamans taught a potent psychological truth, that one must embrace the dark side of oneself and of the world, cruelty, suffering, and death, in order to overcome them. Only by walking through the shadows can we reach the light and become masters of our own destinies. In The Psychopath's Bible, For the Extreme Individual by Christopher S. Hyatt with Dr. Jack Willis, they say. Throughout history, throughout most of the world, psychopaths have gotten a bad rap. That is quite understandable since almost all of the world's religious and social philosophies have little use for the individual except as a tool to be placed in service to their notion of something else, God, or the collective, or the higher good or some other equally undefinable term. Only rarely, such as in Zen and Tibetan Buddhism, and some schools of existentialism, is the individual considered primal. Primary to our understanding of the extreme individual is the will to overcome anything which prevents us from reaching our own personal ideal. In opposition to the will to overcome is the fear of losing what we have. When we feel safe, our tendency is to reach out to create, to fulfill our wildest dreams, to challenge the world. Extreme individuals, however, don't wait to feel safe. They simply proceed to overcome obstacles which stand in their way of self-expansion, of going beyond what they are and what they feel. Man wants to triumph, to be victorious in his life, and some men want and need this more than others. These are the extreme individuals, those who push the boundaries of the ordinary. Live like this without delusions. Be who you really are. This is as good, true, and pure as it gets as far as we know without conclusive evidence of a God that tells us to live a pious life. If you want to stay in your limited life, don't read the rest of this book, it might corrupt your repressed, one-dimensional viewpoint. Go from number 152 to number 158 at the library and find one of those safe, conventional self-help books telling you to get a few goals, life strategies, or habits of highly effective people and work on them little by little, day by day, that will reinforce the dull, formulaic life you're living as your path to the capitalist version of success. Midway between loner and everybody's friend. It's like somebody said, we're all background in each other's lives while thinking we're relevant enough to be main characters. The capitalist, corporate, political, religious media forces are trying to make me feel like I belong to some whitewashed, friendly, mainstream tribe of humanity, all supposedly united by a mutual understanding and a caring, sharing concern for one another, when I know that we all stand alone in the world, in our thoughts and in our homes, mostly callous to the plight of others except for the brief, transient feelings of how disgusting the world is when we see it on TV or through some other form in the media, but then we quickly go back to our self-centered lives. Even the closest among us are universes apart in the privacy of our minds, so don't go kidding me about being united with billions of other souls in an entity called society or humanity. The mainstream societal forces have a vested interest in trying to get us all to strive to think as one big community of like-minded, well-intentioned souls, people who want to get a warm, fuzzy feeling that the world is nice and we're all connected by a genuine spiritual connection with one another and a bona fide concern for our fellow man, but it's not true. Most of the time, most of us are self-centered beings with nice exteriors, which is cool because that's who we are by nature. We can act nice and be nice at times, but at the core of our lives, when push comes to shove, if anybody tries to interfere with our comfort levels, the law of the jungle takes over. It's you or them, and only the strong survive. As long as you can understand that this is the way of the world, both in the way you think and the way others think, and not let it get you down in the pursuit of your life, you will be fine. You can ally yourself to your country, your religion, the corporation you work for, your alma mater, the school you went to, and any other group you want, but when it comes right down to the core of your life, it's you living the journey mostly by yourself, probably intimate with a few friends and your family who share only a part of the journey with you. All these pseudo-intimate groups are what the science fiction writer Kurt Vonnegut called Grandfallen, the artificial sense that you're united to other people by some common bond in these phony groupings created by society, when the truth is that you only have a few real kindred spirits and soulmates in life and no real deep connection with anyone else, even though we're all technically human beings coming from the same seed. As individuals, we're light years apart from each other, each with our solitary visions of our own personal utopias. Even among couples, his idea of utopia is different from hers. Very rarely are there perfectly matched soulmates sharing their enjoyment of life together. No group can comfort you when you're down and out about your existential reason d'etre / purpose in life, or anything else real for that matter. Your lover and a good friend might make you feel better for the moment, but you still have to resolve all your angst by yourself, or it will destroy you bit by bit. This is how most people die before their time. Most medical conditions are merely symptoms of the main disease of life, the spiritual aesthetic-inspired deterioration of the soul, or, to put it more bluntly, the selling of the soul, often without realizing it, to the pop culture political capitalist agenda out there. Your God might help you out when you listen to the sweet sounds of the choir at your church or the inspiring words of the preacher, but even that doesn't give you the permanent spiritual sense of inner harmony enlightened individuals know. I've been there asking God to help me when I was down, out, and lost, only to realize I was talking to thin air. It's me and me alone. Ain't no God anywhere watching over me in this life, ready to intervene if things get too out of hand. There might be another dimension we enter into at death, but as far as life on earth right here, right now, ain't no guardian angels watching over us. If they were, why do bad things happen to exemplary people? The Reverend and the congregation, like everybody else, are fallible human beings with their own fantasies and foibles just like you. They got their own agendas. When your agenda starts to differ from their agendas, or you become perceived as a liability to them, they will turn on you in a heartbeat and do whatever it takes to eliminate you from their scene, regardless of how religious and holy you or they claim to be. It's each of us in our own houses with our own things, with our own investment plans, taking care of our own comfort levels and security. A true community is opening up your heart, enjoying the company of others without pretense, accepting people as they are. One of the few places I found this was in the novel Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, where the outcasts set up their own community away from mainstream society for themselves. But just about anywhere you go in modern society, your worth is immediately pegged by your so-called status within the system, your monetary worth, and the perceived status of the work you do. The system has a vested interest in promoting this fake sense of community as through the endless crud coming from the mainstream media, because it helps keep the masses occupied and pacified, competing with one another to try to get as many material goods and look as cool and successful as they can to others. See the hypocrisy for what it is and free yourself from it. We're all solitary blobs of flesh running around, caught up in the dramas in our heads, somewhere between our selfish desires and our desire to share our lives with others, to get a communal sense of belonging to the grand tribe of humanity, in order to get a feeling of intimacy, emotional comfort, and love with a few like-minded individuals, such that we relieve some of the existential loneliness we feel by design as lone human beings, unable to connect and share ourselves purely with any other human being on the planet. The truth is that everybody's dreams, goals, and fantasies are the most important things in their lives. Enlightenment is to get over this self-centered need to want to get others to recognize you as a special individual, and to measure your life by how many people show up at your funeral, even if they're all phony friends there to make a social appearance, not because they really give a damn about you. When you're dead, you're dead. It doesn't matter. All that matters is to know in your soul that you took your life for a good, righteous ride, being true to yourself without needing any cameras around proclaiming to the world how fascinating you are. Then when you die, you can either rest in peace or meet your maker head on, knowing full well you honored this life he gave you the best that you could with the particular environment you lived in. Chapter 5. The Dark Side of the Soul. The Self-Centered Comfort Zone. We are all self-centered and carnal by nature. When you figure out how to earn your self-respect and do it, you have the ability to break out of your self-centered rut, to do some good and aspire to share yourself with the world. But you can never get over your true self-centered nature, because that's what we are by design, and despite what good you do, you always have that private, lusty, hedonistic paradise of sensual cravings and the desire for comfort living inside of you. I'm not one of these phony lovey-dovey preacher new age sage types who lives in a house bigger than I need while hypocritically claiming the purpose of life is to serve humanity. If you sincerely want to serve humanity, you would sell everything you own that you didn't need and give that money away to help people while you lived a humble life true to your word. But all I see is hypocrites preaching this line of bull among our self-help, new age and religious gurus, because by any standards, they all live in excess and enjoy the fruits of their labors rather than using them to help others. If you see anyone out there claiming to be good, humble, and selfless, follow them to their home, to see how they live, what kind of car they drive, what they own over and above what they need. Check out their assets on public records websites. If they work for a non-profit corporation, all the tax records are supposed to be public domain information. The true saints own almost nothing. They have given it all away to serve their fellow man. They are humble, modest people. How can someone claiming to be a good person in service to humanity own a big beach house in Maui as a current, high-profile New Age prophet does, telling people that the purpose of life is to serve humanity while he's living in capitalist excess? There are very few saints in the world, although I will grant that there are a few, but I'm suspect of anybody claiming to be good, both because if you're truly good, you don't say you are. You speak through your actions. Secondly, we are primal, carnal, and self-centered by nature. It takes a great act of will to repress all this in order to live exclusively by what is good and noble within yourself. We are all a part of humanity, but we're not connected by some brotherhood of humanity thing the New Age and religious phonies are preaching at you, either trying to sell you something that will give you a warm, fuzzy feeling like their book or tape, or trying to get you to contribute to their favorite cause, them. We are like crocodiles who sometimes cannibalize each other in order to ensure their own strength and survival, and we are like tigers who kill other tigers who come into their territories or invade other territories and kill the tigers there in order to get more territory for ourselves. Wisdom is knowing what human nature is so you don't get blindsided when you least expect it by a wolf in sheep's clothing. What they taught you in school is not true. There is no society of people out there with good intentions to live in service to God, country, and their fellow man except in fictional propaganda, children's fairy tales and soppy, outdated musicals. We make social connections and help each other out here and there, but for the most part, we're a bunch of individuals, each living for our own comfort, pleasure, and safety in our solitary homes full of consumer goods and electronic gadgets, watching friendly strangers on TV, chatting with intimate strangers on the web. Don't expect there to be some paternalistic father figure force out there in the name of God, government, organization, or leader looking out for your best interests, because everybody is looking out for their own best interests first, even religious people like the ones who passed by the beat-up guy on the side of the road in the Good Samaritan story. I've met my share of them, people claiming to be religious living like self-centered gluttons, even among the clergy. How many fat ministers do you see around while they know perfectly well that someone in Sudan is starving? We are each trying to create a buffered comfort zone for ourselves, even if it means excluding the poor, tired, hungry masses of the world, which is what we do by virtue of the way we live in modern, Western society, while we're perfectly aware that 100 million people are starving somewhere on this planet right now. This is human nature and the way the capitalist ideology works. Human nature, good and evil. He to whom God has given a talent has the duty to use it to do something good. St. Augustine. My life is both a sense of easy playfulness and dead seriousness. Commentary on human nature. A society can be judged by the way it treats its most disadvantaged, its least beloved, its mad. As things now stand, we must be judged a poor lot, and it is time to mend our ways. Lewis Thomas. If you want to see the true nature of man, watch one of them reality shows and see how they backstab each other and sell their souls for a few bucks. Religious guy on TV. Now I have other things to think about. I was born with all the vices. I have radically suppressed some and kept the rest on a starvation diet. God alone knows the martyrdoms I have undergone in this psychological training school, but now I give up. That path leads to the grave, and I want to live through 3 or 4 more books. Gustave Flaubert, Letter to Louise Collet, January 1834. God made us with free will. He gave us a potentially good side, a potentially bad side, and a neutral side where we're neither. We're just ordinary people living out our lives. All of us feel goodness for the people and animals we love, get angry at some people, hate some people for no reason other than that they're different from us, and scheme against others to get what we want for ourselves. This is human nature. It will always be a contradictory mix. We will be good in some situations, bad in others depending on our mood. Some people are more good than bad. Others are more bad than good, but there are very few who are either all good or all bad. Nobody can be good for an entire lifetime and get rid of their tendencies for anger, hate and jealousy, which is why no human can ever be perfect and match the Great One, Jesus Christ, who was the only perfect man in history, but he had an advantage: he was a man-God. Most people think they're considerably better on the morality, gentleness, compassionate and likability scales than they actually are in the objective standard of real life. I've even seen bank robbers think they were pretty good people who never wanted to hurt anybody, and a minister who hired a hitman to kill another minister who was having an affair with his wife. So in conclusion, I only judge a person's good character if I see them demonstrate good actions over a long period of time, and I know that anyone, no matter how good, kind, and gentle they are today, can degenerate into evil and anger if enough misfortune comes their way. Bad people can become good, as evident by the many testimonials you see about despicable people getting touched by God and seeing the light, so it's a two-way street. Myself personally, I don't feel good in the saintly sense nor bad in the evil sense. I focus on my own life without hurting anyone else in the process, and release whatever good energy there is in my soul for my own benefit to stay inspired and free, earn some cash and shed my light onto the world as a consequence of these first two actions. I'm bound by neither the low-level, one-dimensional capitalist world nor bound by the dreamy delusions of New Ageism about loving everyone, all you need is love, etc. Because I'm pure enough to know we're all self-centered by nature. A truly loving person would sell all their possessions, give the money to the poor, then dedicate their lives to serving their fellow man. But what I see in modern capitalist society is a bunch of fake religious and New Age spiritual leaders living comfortable lives in nice homes far away from the homeless and hurting people on the street who could really use some of their supposed love of humanity. Granted, there are a few truly benevolent souls among us, but there's a great chasm of differences between the way people generally see themselves as good, honorable people and the way they actually are in the way they live their lives. First of all, as instinctive beings hooked on self-preservation, we're all naturally territorial to get our own little piece of the world to ensure our own comfort and security at the exclusion of everyone else. Secondly, with all these so-called psycho-spiritual leaders I come across in my various explorations of the alleged gurus of the day, what I mostly see is well-fed, fat-faced people living in comfortable homes with nice cars and nice clothes, preaching a contradictory, hypocritical message of serving your fellow man and giving it all you got to be a winner in your career/business, while essentially buttering their own lives, paying lip service to helping others, probably doing just enough to assure themselves that they're good people, and doing it specifically for that reason, not out of the authentic goodness of their hearts. I don't believe in wishy-washy gray areas of commitment, particularly if you claim to be something you're not. If you claim to love humanity and serve your fellow man, which is the standard definition of a Christian, I expect to see a St. Francis of Assisi type who sells all of his or her worldly goods except for a modest house with humble furniture and gives the proceeds to the poor, because you know that these people need it more than you do. But I don't. I see mostly hypocrites, confused about who they really are and what they're really all about. We all have the same potential for goodness, love, evil, violence, jealousy and anger within ourselves. We can't control our emotions when we feel them, even though we all learn to control our actions to stay out of trouble, but it doesn't change the fact that we generally don't particularly like people who we perceive as different from us, or people who we perceive as acting antagonistic to us in any way at all, which could be something as trivial as your perception of someone cutting you off in traffic, or a dirty look which is enough to make an enemy and instill hate. Just about everybody puts on a phony front for the world to try to appear like cool, nice people, but their real self-centered colors are in there tightly guarded. This is who we really are, self-centered beings, and very few of us get beyond it enough to be true lovers of humanity at large. At best, life is a mixture of goodness, nobility, sharing, and compassion mixed in with our self-centered, self-serving natures. At worst, it's all selfish, greedy, exploitative, vindictive, and evil. For most people, who live by emotion, not a permanent standard within themselves, their behaviors depend on how they feel at any moment. You could be nice and kind in the morning because you signed up 2 new clients at work and get angry and mean in the afternoon after that bitch waitress screwed up your order, spilled coffee on you, had the nerve to sass you. Then when you got back to work, your boss came in and unloaded a bunch of work on you that has to be done by tonight, and you promised your son you would take him to the baseball game. There are a few genuinely feeling, compassionate people among us, but most of us care mainly about ourselves, our immediate family, and maybe a few friends. Then we will give a few bucks to charity here and there to reassure ourselves that we're good people, and that's as far as it goes about caring for the plight of humanity. There's a lot of strife, hate, jealousy and competition within families, which continues on when dealing with other groups of people. So as far as the utopian nature of humanity goes, to live in harmony with one another for long stretches of time, I don't believe it, because I've seen the stress, strife, animosities, and opposing alliances in every group I've ever been part of in my life, big and small. If the human race was really loving, all of our domestic problems would be solved by now. Man wouldn't be so inhumane to his fellow man, and there wouldn't be any wars. But as it stands, there are more than likely homeless, hungry, sad, lonely, and sick people a mile or two from where you live at this very moment, along with rapes, robberies, murders, domestic violence, divorce, hate and misery. Not that I waste my time dwelling on it, but that's reality. We're all territorial and self-centered and seek out our own pleasure and comfort before worrying about that of our fellow men. It comes down to the universal law of human nature: there are the haves and the have-nots, the people with the power and the wealth who control the resources, and the ones without it, and you can rest assured the people with the power don't want to share it with these have-nots on the outside trying to get in. It's the rich against the poor. This is the classic battle between people, the fat asses hoarding it all for themselves while trying to suck every ounce of sweat they can out of the poor workers. Even if we're relatively happy and comfortable, it's usually not enough for the people brainwashed by the materialist capitalist world, because the consumerist ideology has been bred into us to never be satisfied with the things we own. The more we get, the more we want. Many of us think that more material things and capitalist experiences will give us more happiness and peace of mind, but they don't. By capitalist experiences, I mean typical capitalist trips, cruises, jaunts to Vegas, attendance at the trendy places about town, amusement parks, pop culture thrills, shopping malls, the latest movie, professional sports event, concert, play, etc. It always comes back to the inner standard. Stay true to yours day by day through intense inspired action from the soul, and you won't have very many needs from the capitalist world, because you won't need things. You will have happiness within yourself. Furthermore, this type of lifestyle keeps you calm and peaceful, so it lessens your motives for greed and power. And then when you watch the people around you fall to pieces when they have medical problems or psychological spiritual problems caused by stress and problems in the real world, you will just keep doing your inspired activities and have that base in your soul while you watch them fade away in spirit and health, because they have been following the illusions of the world rather than following their own souls. The 1972 movie Conquest of the Planet of the Apes is a good commentary on the savage nature of humanity. The Prince and the Beast. Early in life, I had to choose between honest arrogance and hypocritical humility. I chose honest arrogance and have seen no occasion to change. Frank Lloyd Wright, famous architect. Whenever I have to choose between two evils, I always like to try the one I haven't tried before. Mae West. I didn't sign up to be a member of polite society. I will mind my own business, but I don't want to be nice to people I don't know, because I think most people are generic nerds anyway and I don't need the bother. Hunko, the man. I can appreciate the possibility of the most frightful crime being committed without object or intent to injure, but just because, out of curiosity or to satisfy an unconscious craving for action. Leo Tolstoy, Childhood, Boyhood, Youth, 1852. Everyone has talent. What is rare is the courage to follow the talent to the dark place where it leads. Erica Jong. When a person is on a serious inner journey to his or her own powerlessness and meanwhile is in immediate contact with the powerless men and women of the world, then community will result. Richard Rohr, Simplicity. There is no doubt that healthy-mindedness is inadequate as a philosophical doctrine, because the evil facts which it positively refuses to account for are a genuine portion of reality, and they may after all be the best key to life's significance and possibly the only openers of our eyes to the deepest levels of truth. W.M. James, The Varieties of Religious Experience. The only devils in the world are those running around our own hearts. This is where the battle should be fought. Mahatma Gandhi. Everywhere you look where there's real enlightenment about life, not some soppy bill of goods, they always say there are two sides to man, the good, noble, divine, spiritual side of God and the animal, carnal, hedonistic side of primal cravings. Even the Bible has a good go at this quandary in Galatians 5:13 to 5:18, the battle of the human spirit vs. human nature. You were called to be free, but do not let this freedom become an excuse for letting your physical desires control you. Instead, let love make you serve one another. For the whole law is summed up in one commandment: love your neighbor as you love yourself. But if you act like wild animals, hurting and harming each other, then watch out or you will completely destroy one another. The free spirit ideology says I'm free to live out the full me, my only rule being that my rights stop where others start, live and let live, so there's no contradiction to me between my carnal and noble side. I want to live them both to the max, and I do, I just don't take it out on unsuspecting victims. I enjoy the sexual side, my search for pleasure, and occasionally get very angry thoughts about people who wrong me, but most of the time I don't act on them, not necessarily because I'm a good person but because I don't want to go to jail, because by my code, I still live by the Old Testament code: when you're threatened or violated somehow, you're justified in using all the power you need to either remove the threat or get equitable vengeance, so there's no inconsistency with me living out my spiritual and base side all at the same time. It's all good as long as I don't infringe on innocent people's lives. I'm not gonna limit myself just because some religious book tells me to repress what I feel that's natural to me. It's my duty as a full human being to live out the complete and total me as I feel it, without bowing down to any gods or codes of conduct beyond me. That's what makes me truly free and away from the mainstream civilization. I'm happy living my way, but also happy in a certain sense that the world is so repressed, because if it wasn't, we would be having oodles more crime than we have now. I can't trust people to not harm others. I think most would if they felt they could get away with it. I don't spend much time dwelling on it, I'm too busy trying to get the most out of my life. This is true freedom, simply enjoying your life for the ride it is, while being wise enough to avoid jail by not acting on your thoughts of vengeance when you get them. If I had acted out on all the violent thoughts I've had about getting people back who screwed with me, I would have at least 10 life sentences by now. We're all bastards and bitches in the privacy of our minds. 'Tis better to be whole than to be a good little repressed conformist clone brainwashed by your culture. What you don't own owns you, so even though I don't go around killing, raping, and pillaging, I live out my carnal hedonist side at the very least in my mind, and always think my angry, violent thoughts through even though I don't act on them. I'm mature enough not to hurt anyone, both by the universal law of karma and because I don't want to waste my life in jail for being a fool. Most people don't mean that much to me that I will go to jail just to get revenge on them. You know what you're all about in your mind, the question is to what extent do you let it out in the world of other people? How much of you is truly good and how much is fake good done to appear good to get what you want and avoid jail? How much is fake goodness geared to delude yourself into thinking you're a righteous, cool, good, fascinating individual? Based on living in the real world of people, where I've seen all manner of man's inhumanity to man, and watching reality shows on TV to see how cutthroat, two-faced, and hypocritical they are to win the money, I know there are very few pure souls out there, although there are a few. But whenever anyone tells me they're a Christian or a devotee of some other ideology, I know enough to be doubly cautious, because firstly they were confused, lost and weak enough to give themselves over to an ideology beyond themselves, and secondly, by virtue of following some ideology, they're automatically repressed, so it's like a time bomb waiting to explode. I would rather have someone straight and honest with me than spew off some stuff about how great God is or some higher awareness psychobabble that supposedly made them enchanted, enlightened beings above the trivial selfishness of humanity in general. I've seen so many fake Christians that when someone tells me they're a Christian now, I laugh to myself. No, they live in the same gutter as I do in the privacy of their minds and reserve judgment unless I consistently see selfless action, which is rare. If society's laws infringe on my right to live my life my way as long as I don't hurt anyone else in the process, then I ignore them because they're subservient to the higher, natural law of the universe, which is the only law I answer to as a free being in the universe. I can accept the consequences because I know I'm right, but it doesn't make it right for something beyond me to impose its will on me, even though I'm not hurting anyone through what I do, mainly, use mind-altering substances and hire girls for sex. Big deal, but I can't even do these things in peace while half the world are killing each other and they're still wasting time trying to bust harmless people like me. Who gave that entity they call the government the authority to butt into my life and protect me from myself, as they say, with all their so-called morality laws for consensual crimes that hurt no one other than the voluntary players, possibly inadvertently hurting themselves? That's part of the game of life, to go out and explore new worlds and accept the consequences when they come, but at least you're not, like Roosevelt said, one of the huddled masses who knows neither victory nor defeat because you've never been out of your comfort zone to test your limits. They got no divine right to tell me how to live, yet most of us are so brainwashed that we simply accept the state of affairs as is without questioning it. If I want to do coke and acid and hire several girls to have sex with all at the same time, that's my business, nobody else's. I read a book by an Eastern enlightened guru who said that all of man's folly comes from his personal individual ego focusing on his wants and desires rather than focusing on the higher levels of his soul, doing noble things for the collective good of humanity. I watched an American New Age type guru on a TV talk show with her colored hair and her painted nails touting the same line, saying we should all love each other and give of ourselves to help the world come together and evolve to a new higher level of awareness. I simply can't agree with these viewpoints because my true nature is stuck on myself, as is every other real sane human being. We are what we are, each of us a loner walking around caught up in our own little delusions, wants, desires and fantasies, and no matter how much we claim to love the world, this is the reality of our lives. This is the way a full life operates. You have to balance both out as you go through. 1. Do good positive things for others for money, self-respect, and to get admiration and love from them. 2. Enjoy your carnal lusts and euphoric pleasures at the same time, the only rule being don't mess with people who don't want you messing with them. True spirituality is inner peace and happiness with yourself. I can only be that by being myself fully, not playing out some charade society tried to brainwash me with during my formative years. It has very little to do with material possessions or status in the world. It's all about feeling that you're doing exactly what you were meant to do with your life, releasing all that natural energy within such that it gives you a joy to do it, all of it, the good, the bad and the ugly. Living both the noble and carnal parts of yourself doesn't have to be selfish or antisocial. Your first priority is doing what's right for you. You can do it in peace without interfering with other people's lives. Just live a peaceful life doing your own thing, commuting with kindred spirits and soulmates like yourself, and minimizing contact with other people who have nothing in common with you in order to avoid tension and conflicts with them. At the very least, don't be antagonistic towards them. This is the root of much of our folly. Out in the world, we're in constant contact with people not like us who we don't particularly like, so sooner or later we lash out against them or they lash out against us because we intuitively ideologically don't like each other because we have different fundamental beliefs, can't relate to each other and mean nothing to each other anyway. Strive for peace within yourself, then you will be peaceful with the world. Nothing can give you this peace but you knowing who you are and living it out. Many people fear taking the journey to discover their real selves because they're afraid of discovering that dark, carnal side that lives in there. But if you want to live a full life, you must see yourself as you really are. The multidimensional human being. Men don't choose evil because it's bad. They choose it because they think it will bring them happiness. What comes out of a man is what defile a man. For from within, out of the heart of man, come evil thoughts, fornication, theft, murder, adultery, coveting, wickedness, deceit, licentiousness, envy, slander, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within and they defile a man. Mark 7:20-23. It is in the brain and the brain only that the great sins of the world take place. Oscar Wilde, The Picture of Dorian Gray. To become conscious of it, the shadow, involves recognizing the dark aspects of the personality as present and real. This act is the essential condition for any kind of self-knowledge and it therefore, as a rule, meets with considerable resistance. Carl Jung, The Portable Jung. No one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. It involves recognizing the dark aspects of the personality as present and real. Carl Jung. Necessary, forever necessary to burn out false shames and smelt the heaviest of the body into purity. D.H. Lawrence. It wasn't sin that was born on the day when Eve picked an apple, what was born was a splendid virtue called disobedience. Orlando Felici. Dare to know everything about yourself. The natural thing is to live by your emotions, but society has come in and taught us to repress ours, at least out in public where we're supposed to act pro-social and nice. This is all fine and good, and I don't advocate doing whatever you feel like doing out in public around other people. Remember, the only rule is to not hurt others, but you should be free enough to live by your natural essence and follow it wherever it leads. The dark side, the unconscious, libido, the shadow is simply that part of you that tends towards pleasure, ease and lust. To me, it's not necessarily evil to aspire to these things as long as you don't hurt anyone in your efforts to achieve the state of hedonistic bliss for yourself. A long time ago, they tried to make me a pro-social citizen, which is a good thing in itself, but in the process, they symbolically tried to emasculate me, to cut my balls off, so to speak, to make me think I should work hard in the conventional world for some illusory concept of status and power, marry one girl and have children with her and suck it all up in silence when my natural, carnal, free-spirited desires started screaming to release themselves from inside of me. Plain and simple, this is why I wrote this book, to say you're more than the formula you've been brainwashed to live by, and it's okay to follow your untamed whims as long as you don't hurt other people in the process, unless you're doing B&D or S&M with consenting adults, but that's a matter reserved for my love and sex book. Watch a baby or a dog who hasn't been trained. They live by their natural instincts, expressing whatever they feel inside. This is the healthy way to live, to release your emotions as you feel them, even the negative ones. Just find a way to express them such that you don't hurt anyone else in the process. When you're angry, feel it, let it out by doing some displacing activity like working out while you think it through, and let it go. The important thing is to feel it, release it, forget it, move on, and don't keep it in. The dark side has within it the seeds of its own destruction in some cases, though not all, as long as you know enough to go so far in the exploration of it and stop before you get yourself into some kind of trouble, either personal or with the outside world. Some very intelligent people apparently enjoy living lives of evil, exploring their dark side, so to speak. That's not to say this is good, because my one commandment is not to infringe on the lives of others, but as a full human being, I am who I am. My primal side tells me I'm a violent, sexual, carnal soul who gets angry when my fellow man gets in my way and tries to interfere with my life, so I make it a point to know who I am, explore this dark side, take what I want from it and leave the rest. I read a passage somewhere in the Bible that asked if one moment of anger was worth all the trouble it would cause you later due to repercussions, not necessarily guilt, because I know I wouldn't feel any guilt if I smashed some guy who deserved it, but anyway, the point is that I can't count the many times I kept my mouth shut when I felt like saying something bad to hurt someone because they were either acting like idiots, did something I didn't like, or committed some transgression against me. So I've learned to hold my tongue when I'm angry and preserved a lot of peace because of this. In the novel The Magic Mountain, Through the character of Hans Castorp, a naive noble young German guy, Thomas Mann goes through the process of his self-discovery to peel off the various layers of life, the physical body, the rational, the cynical, the materialist, etc. And the proverbial realm of the carnal side where the erotic older lady he meets teases him to explore his lust by telling him the greatest moralists are adventurers of their dark sides. Peppercorn, the old Swiss guy near the end of the story, represents the ultimate paradox and mystery that man is, a mixture of everything in the realm of human thoughts and emotions. In man's cynical style through the industrialized, World War I era in which he wrote, he painted a fiery self-destructive death for humanity through Peppercorn's suicide which went against his romantic view of life, which is why he criticized society so deeply, which is simply a macro version of the turbulent, contradictory lives all of us secretly live within ourselves, bereft of meaning much of the time. Death is the only certainty in life. The path we take to get there cannot righteously be reduced to the one-dimensional good, noble view. According to man, it takes sheer genius to live out your so-called dark side. It's like the noble Apollo and the lusty Dionysius of Greek mythology. You can't have one without the other because that's who we are as human beings, a constant conscious meld of nobility and depravity. It never ends. Anyone who deprives themselves of one will eventually feel the emptiness within and not feel harmonious unless they reach for the other side in some way to balance themselves. A great life is to honor both sides equally, the carnal and the noble. Whether you live in the lap of luxury in a mansion or amidst the starving natives in Africa, life has only the meaning and sacredness you give it until the day you die. The world will always be a contradictory mixture of good and evil. You must look out for the sanctity of your own soul first before you look out there for meaning. As an enlightened being, I presume the journey is to reach inside myself, pull out what's good and noble to do my bit to improve humanity in my own way, but it doesn't make me a benevolent New Age flake. My dark side will always be there lurking close in my thoughts like a comfortable old shoe because that's my true nature, like those characters in Anthony Burgess's novel Clockwork Orange who got their enjoyment out of being violent and depraved, the ID unleashed, fully free. Religion offers X number of commandments or laws on how to live a virtuous, moral life with no mention of acknowledging the intuitive standard within in all its facets, spiritual and carnal. It's all good because it's all me. To repress my carnal hedonistic side as religion wants me to do is to deny a great, major part of my primal energy as a human being, and I won't do it for anybody or anything. As Carl Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light but by making the darkness conscious, which means that you don't find enlightenment by living in a soppy fantasy land of wonderful Pollyanna naive people who all claim to love each other in a phony superficial way. You acknowledge your true primal self in all its facets, even the dark side hidden away in the subconscious mind. You don't act on it to hurt other people, but you at least bring your sexual desires and angry feelings to the surface and explore them in your mind. This is why many artists paint and writers write, to let out their primal urges through socially acceptable creative expression even if they are violent and evil. Your nature, the way you were born, the way you were brought up, all the negativity, betrayals, and injustices committed against you in your life have formed you, are still inside of you, and unless you deal with them and acknowledge them, it all sits there as a big mass of negative energy destroying you from the inside. Anger and frustration are a fact of life for all enlightened people. Everybody's had the crappy end of the stick at one time or another, has had broken dreams, things that didn't go your way, and you've been either betrayed or put down by evil, miserable minds as I have, but I've learned that I have to let it all go as soon as it happens if I'm to stay sane. We live in a cruel, cold world, there's no doubt about that. Some people are so miserable they get joy only when they can put others down, thereby bringing themselves up a notch for a moment. It could be your boss, your mother, your spouse, your child, a bully at school, or a stranger who all of a sudden decides they don't like you, so they will put you down. You will feel angry and want to beat the crap out of them, but if you do that, you will just go to jail even if they're the perpetrators. The law doesn't care about what somebody may have done to wrong you, either a cheating spouse or a friend who ripped you off. If you retaliate with violence, you will go to jail, so it's not worth it. Religion doesn't work because by bottling it in and denying these repressed violent feelings, you destroy yourself from the inside. You have to learn to culture a sense of patience, forgiveness, and forgetfulness in order to stay sane in this much maligned world. Vengeance is a good feeling, and I believe in this poetic form of justice, but it has to be well thought out and nothing that can land you in the slammer for a stretch of time. But barring that, you have to purge all the negativity that happens to you immediately after it happens by thinking it through, saying to yourself the perpetrator is a mean evil son of a bitch, but then you have to do the only sensible thing, which is to forgive them in your mind, forget about it and take out that negative, frustrated energy you feel on a positive thing like creativity, physical activity, intoxication, or good sex, either that or get revenge in such a clever way that you will never get caught. That's the only way I can purge all my violent thoughts, by thinking them through to know exactly what happened, concluding the perpetrator is an evil person, forgiving them in my mind, forgetting about them and doing something positive to get away from that negative moment as far and as fast as I can. I believe in karma. Everybody gets their just rewards, either good or bad at some point in time. It may not be today or tomorrow, but you always end up reaping what you sow. Good creates good, bad creates bad. Bad people usually end up either in jail, dead, alone, alienated from good people and / or desperate. Your job is not rehabilitation, pity, or punching bag. You simply acknowledge to yourself that he or she is a poison person, and your only job is to stay away from them as far as you can without provoking them or betraying your negative thoughts in any way but subtle ones that tell him or her you don't like them and don't want to be in their company. When somebody wrongs you and you get angry, know that you're angry, feel the violent thoughts of bashing their heads in, then forget about it, dismiss him or her as another typical jerk and use that negative energy to do something positive. If you let people get inside of your mind and fester in angry, violent thoughts, you lose, they win. If you repress it, which means try to ignore it or live in denial as many domestically violated women do, you haven't let your natural dark side of anger come out, and anger turned inward leads to depression. So you must be enlightened enough to feel your angry thoughts when they happen, think them through, symbolically kill that person in your mind, then forgive them in your mind and forget about it. Move on with the only thing that matters, your life, and use that negative dark energy to do something positive. Because you take the journey to know the darkness within, you know the darkness in other people, therefore you know the potential for evil in the human race, which is limitless and horrific. Armed with this knowledge, you should have the wisdom to practice restraint in your life and know that your positive side is a better way to live than your dark side, both to get along with people and for peace of mind. If you don't bring your dark side out to a conscious level, you get repressed and it comes out in other ways like feelings of emptiness, bad dreams, nightmares, creative works, anger, violence, hate, depression, addictions, sadness, self-mutilation, eating disorders, psychosomatic illness, greed, competition, envy, aggression, jealousy, stress, headaches, insomnia, illness, disharmony, etc. Your persona, public self, and shadow, private self, are two parts of one whole. You must romance them both in order to dance the full dance of life, which is why I have an interest in the archetypes of mythology, because they cover the dark side with colorful characters, unlike the Judeo-Christian tradition, which covers only one good, all-powerful God and one unidimensional evil devil with no exploration of the multidimensional gray, contradictory area in between, which is more like the true nature of the human beast. Jekyll and Hyde, Robert Louis Stevenson, and Dracula are two stories that dealt with man's hidden carnal side and his efforts to keep them hidden, both Hyde and Dracula venturing out only at night, but the human is a whole, he or she shouldn't relegate it to the back burner of his mind. You should live it all out, unabashed in the light of day, because it's all you. Beyond this is cultural brainwash, which tries to mold us into being mundanely pro-social by cutting ourselves off from that big carnal part of ourselves. It's like Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray, where Dorian made a deal with the devil that all his negative qualities of aging and cynicism would go into the picture while he remained beautiful and young, but in truth we're all a contradictory mixture of good and evil, beauty and ugliness who try to repress our carnal side while presenting our noble side to the world, while I say I don't have to flaunt my untamed side to the world but acknowledge it and explore it discreetly because it's a major part of me. A full life is to do your worthy noble soulful pursuits but romance your hidden carnal side too, and that includes all those sexual thoughts that constantly flood your mind. Don't deny them or repress them, live them through as best as you can. I'm not a bad boy bent on self-destructive decadence. All sensible people who go on decadent binges know when they've reached their limits, then set off for the other extreme of nobility and health again. I'm entitled to live my real self fully. This is all we got as far as we know for sure. This is my full humanity. If there's a God, I'm honoring him by being the way he made me, questioning his existence and authority over me. If he's there waiting at the end, he will know I honored him by striving to be the most complete human being I could have been, by exploring my life in all its facets, by following my true nature, which is to believe in myself as the instrument of my own destiny, not to blindly put it into his hands if I can't see him and know for sure he's real. Not even the threat of going to hell in an afterlife can stop me from living my free-spirited lifestyle, because I'm being myself fully the way God made me. So as long as I don't hurt other people, everything I do is good because he made me this way, to pursue what I feel naturally, which is an unquenchable thirst for wisdom and euphoric, transcendent feelings, which is the true nature of the human beast after all his material needs are met. I have no right to infringe on anyone else's life, but what I do with mine and what like-minded consenting people do with me is all good as a part of the full exploration of my humanity. Carl Jung and the Duality of Man. Only the living presence of the eternal images can lend the psyche a dignity which makes it morally possible for a person to stand by his own soul, and be convinced that it is worth his while to persevere with it. Only then will he realize that the conflict is in him, and that the discord and the tribulation are riches which should not be squandered by attacking others. Carl Gustav Jung, 1875–1961. To confront a person with his own shadow is to show him his own light. Carl Jung. Carl Jung was a neo-Freudian mystic who believed, like his ex-buddy Sigmund, that the subconscious mind, which is the psychology jargon word for soul, is where all the action is in the human psyche. Free, enlightened people don't have much difference between what's in the subconscious mind, soul, and what's in the conscious mind, ego, how you want to appear to others, but most normal people repress the subconscious mind for a variety of reasons, such that their conscious reality is like the tip of an iceberg above the surface of the water, while the real essence in their souls, their primal divine spark, is hidden away in the subconscious mind because they want to be successful, sociable, and trendy as defined by the culture they live in, so they conform to its conventions while repressing who they really are. Carl Jung started out beside the father of psychology Sigmund Freud as his friend and intellectual partner in their agreement about the subconscious mind, but broke off relations and went his own way because he was more mystical, more into the supernatural parts of life. He wanted to reach the unattainable depths that lie in the human psyche, this magical utopian Eden many of us are preoccupied with, which is the essence of the most positive aspect of human behavior, to keep going further to see what's in there, to reach for the limits of the imagination and the collective unconscious. Whereas Freud believed that the libido, the inner store of primal energy within an individual, was almost all about sex, Jung didn't agree and thought it was more like a life drive, a constant attempt to try to release the angst and energy inside to satisfy our curiosity about life in general. Jung believed that man in general is guided by the mythical framework through which humanity operates that is hidden away in the subconscious mind. Life in the modern world disrupts this natural way of looking at things, this way of living, to such an extent that many people get all messed up, thus suffering from neurotic and psychotic illnesses. In a goal-oriented capitalist society that knows only money, production, and the work ethic, there is no more need for heroes and villains, lovers, wise men, partiers, hedonists, and gods. Because this richness of depth is not there, people in the modern world live stressed out lives alien to their true natures. Jung, like me, believed that within all of us, there lies a genetic seed or some supernatural essence that houses within it all the collective memories, development, and evolution of the human race since the beginning of time. By exploring it over his lifetime, he hoped he could get close to this collective unconscious. Quite often we just get brief momentary glimpses of it, but Jung was obsessed with trying to access it as clearly as he could, to go back to the roots of civilization, which he never quite did. But then again, shamanistic recreational substances weren't as common and known about en masse back in the 1930s and 40s as they are these days, so I believe we now have the means to get much closer to this other spiritual world. Carlos Castaneda, talked about in his apprenticeship with Don Juan through his several books about the subject. Over his lifetime, Jung had a number of dreams and visions and believed that voices from beyond himself communicated to him inside his mind, like the famous case of his talks with the fictitious person Philemon. I too have experienced this phenomena while on vision quests with mind-altering substances, which is why I am now open to the possibility that housed within each of us as human individuals is a storehouse of psychic supernatural energy from humanity before us that usually only comes out in glimpses, but I'm convinced it can be accessed clearly if we keep searching and eventually figure out how to do it. This storehouse is either housed in the soul or in our genes and comes out when we do something right that accesses it, which is quite rare to do in ordinary living. It's a mystical, non-rational link between us as individuals in the modern world with our primal roots. Whether this knowledge comes from God, nature, or extraterrestrial mortal creators who created us through genetic engineering doesn't matter. The important thing is that we hold the secrets to our beginnings hidden away deep within ourselves that can be accessed by doing the right things to open up the floodgates of our subconscious minds. I'm a level-headed man who generally doesn't believe much in the New Age scene, but once you experience something like this at least once in your life, the paradigm shifts. You realize there could be something there. Even though I still can't be totally positive about it, my several experiences with something beyond myself in my head have led me to look at my life in the so-called real world as a minor affair of trivial things and look to the exploration of this phenomena as my only true interest while in this body. It's like I'm looking for the reassurance that there's a holy grail out there that will satisfy me, that there's some supernatural, spiritual power within the realm of all life that's within me that I'm a part of. Maybe we only come face to face with this force as we near death, if it, in fact, exists, but I want more, not just the glimpses I feel here and there. I want to see it head on, kind of like John C. Lilly wrote about in his several books about his experiences in the sensory deprivation tank while under the influence of ketamine. While standing on the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro, Carl Jung made the following remark. Standing on a hill in the East African plains, I saw herds of thousands of wild beasts, grazing in soundless peace, beneath the primeval world, as they had done for unimaginable ages of time. And I had the feeling of being the first man, the first being to know all this. The whole world around me was still in the primitive silence and knew not that it was. In this very moment in which I knew it, the world came into existence, and without this moment it would never have been. Jung was a spiritual man. He believed in a Christian God, or at least a supreme being. I read that he went to church every Sunday with his wife of 47 years or thereabouts. Anyway, Jung was the first guy in the modern era, barring the Greek philosophers and a few other intellectuals, who openly discussed this duality of good and evil within human nature. He called the dark side the shadow and believed it was one part of us but not our most powerful part. He believed the natural destiny for free, enlightened people was the pursuit of good, to go naturally towards the light force of the universe, which is God, and when we do this after first befriending our dark sides to understand it and know it, we cease to be dualistic, we became bathed in only goodness. But to get there, he said, it's necessary to open up our shadow to ourselves as individuals, because we have to get over our fear and repression to see it for what it is. Only then will we know who we fully are and have the means to better control this dark side within us. His analogy was that we're naturally beings of light. When we let the darkness in, it gives us room to explore the side of ourselves, understand it, then return to the light transformed as more complete people intent on using our powers of goodness, because we now have been through the dark side, know it causes pain, violence, and animosity if we act out against other people. The experience of the dark side, according to Jung, helps us mature to go back to our good sides with greater strength and conviction. Of course, there are exceptions to this rule. Jung described three possible outcomes for evil people. They get away with their evil and live freely. They self-destruct and commit suicide either directly or indirectly. They incur the wrath of their fellow citizens and are destroyed by them. The dark side represents unbounded potential because you get to explore the deepest, darkest dungeons of your soul, but like Joseph Campbell would tell you about the archetypal mythic hero's journey, the hero always metaphorically goes through the darkest abyss in the pit of hell, is slashed to pieces by life's struggles, the proverbial monster, his dark side, but then slowly, like the phoenix rising from the ashes, he resurrects himself, rises up to heal, get stronger, come to a higher version of himself, conquer all his demons and become whole since he's now experienced his full self, the good and the bad. There's now a unification within him of these opposing forces which make him a whole person where the noble side always dominates. He has opened up this unused potential within himself that he's faced head on, now understands himself more completely, and that helps him in becoming a better member of his community to help others live better lives. These opposites unite, and since we are beings of light and God's light is always in us, the darkness yields to the light and we become virtuous, better morally and more helping of our fellow man, because we came to this conclusion through our experiences in the real world. So it goes much deeper than a repressed person who has never experienced his dark side practicing a naive allegiance to God, so he doesn't understand who he fully is. When you become your full self by experiencing both dualities of life, you're now in harmony with the universe and the duality vanishes to become only goodness. The purpose of life is to experience both our good and evil natures, then naturally gravitate back to the good because that's who we are, since we have the positive light of our Creator, God, within us, which is ultimately stronger than everything else out there. Through this maturing process of living through some of the darkest moments within the realm of human experience, the human being is able to let go of the egotistical arrogance of youth to gravitate towards a less competitive, more cooperative, humble way of living, because he has nothing to prove to the world anymore. He's been there, done that for the best and the worst the world has to offer. He knows what's real, knows who he is inside, and he doesn't have to play own-upmanship games with others anymore, because the journey goes inward to live a peaceful life true to himself without needing all that vanity and glitter from the outside world. This is the theory according to Carl Jung, Buddhism, Zen, and a smattering of other philosophers throughout history interested in exploring the dual nature of man. Jung said, "Suppression of the shadow is like remedying a headache by a beheading. In the last resort, there is no good that cannot produce evil or evil that cannot produce good." There are several biographies of Carl Jung, such as Jung, Man and Myth by Vincent Brome, 1978, and C. G. Jung, The Haunted Prophet by Paul J. Stern, 1976.